Good evening. The January 14th, 2026 meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Education will come to order. As is our practice, this meeting will be recorded. I note that Marco Chavez, Deputy Superintendent, Educational Services Division, is attending on behalf of Superintendent McGee this evening. The board provides remote access for members of the public and welcomes community members joining in person and remotely. We use simultaneous interpretation in Spanish for those attending virtually through the end of public comment. Translation will continue further into the meeting if people are utilizing the channel. So thank you to our interpreters, Ana Cruz and Kimberly Larios, for joining us remotely, and Happy New Year. For meeting attendees wishing to access the Spanish translation channel on Zoom, please click on the interpretation button on the menu bar. We ask all speakers to be mindful of the Spanish interpretation and speak slowly and clearly. Item 1B is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. There's a motion to approve the agenda made by Trustee Gerard and a second by Trustee O'Neill. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the agenda for tonight's meeting has been approved. Item 2 is public comment. Guidelines for public comment are available on the SMCOE website and in board docs and on the table outside the boardroom in both English and in Spanish. For speakers who require Spanish interpretation, our interpreters, Ms. Cruz and Ms. Larios, will interpret following each speaker's comments. At this time, members of the public may provide comment for topics that are not included on the approved agenda. The County Board of Education does not act upon any matter that has not been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. And it is the policy of the County Board to refer matters raised in this forum to the superintendent for investigation and or action where appropriate. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, do we have any comments submitted prior to the meeting for topics not on the approved agenda?
No, we don't.
Hard to see through all the
Thank you.
flowers. So beautiful. Speakers are invited to make live comments and will have 3 minutes to speak. Please make sure to keep within the time limits. To make a comment over Zoom, members of the public may use the raise hand feature. Instructions for using this feature are provided as an attachment in the board packet. Once your hand is raised, please wait to be acknowledged by Deputy Superintendent Chavez. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, are there any members of the public attending remotely who wish to make a comment at this time for topics not on the approved agenda?
I do see one raised hand. Janice Palazzari, you may speak.
Good evening, Board President Torres, Board Trustees, and Deputy Superintendent Marco Chavez. I just wanted to say Happy New Year to you all and hope you had a good holiday. And that's all I have to say for tonight. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Oh, any other hands?
I see no other hands.
Thank you. Members of the public may also provide live comment in person. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, are there any submitted cards for topics not on the approved agenda?
No card submitted.
Thank you. Public comment addressing a specific agenda item will be heard after the board's discussion on the item. If members of the public wish to speak to a specific agenda item, please use the raise hand feature when the item is announced, or if in person, submit a card in advance of the item. Cards can be found on the table outside the boardroom and given to a staff member when completed. For item 3A, Deputy Superintendent Chavez will make a presentation for School Board Recognition Month.
Good evening, San Mateo County Board members. Even though I've only been working closely or more closely with you in the most recent months, it already feels like I've gotten to know you at a deeper level. I better know what you care about, what motivates you, and how deeply you're committed to education. January is School Board Recognition Month, and on behalf of the San Mateo County Office of Education, I'd love to take a few moments to recognize and thank you for the work you do every day on behalf of students and families. And so we have a little slide presentation. Each of you came to the board at different times, some of you more recently. And some of you have given decades of service to our county and our education system. So thank you very much for that. You can tell by the hairstyle sometimes in some cases. Um, and all of you came with for different reasons, as you've shared in different situations, whether it's supporting programs for students who choose paths other than college, helping more people understand the importance of education, advocating for students with disabilities, supporting the underserved families, championing court and community schools, or making sure our LGBTQ plus community is represented. You each bring something meaningful to this work. But despite those different paths and perspectives, you all share one important thing in common. You are all champions for education. Thank you for being champions for our youngest learners at the Ann Campbell Center. I know, and our preschools across the county. I know that when we visit those classrooms, we all leave with smiles and for all the great things that are happening with the most youngest learners. Thank you for being champions for our court and community schools students. Again, when we visit the classrooms, when we engage with students, when we attend the graduations, we all can see the joy that that brings to each of you and the pride. And thank you for being champions for students with special needs, always keeping access, equity, and opportunity at the center of your work. Most of all, thank you for your leadership, your time, and your dedication to the students of San Mateo County. Accept a very, 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 very special token of appreciation created by our very own students at Palos Verdes. We've purchased, yes, we've purchased because it's a store, for you freshly made soap, should be in front of you, that was made today. It is tagged with the name of the students that made it. You'll find inspirational pins. For those days where you need that extra lift, you have look at that pin and smile. And beautiful tote bags. I actually want one of those. Beautiful tote bags, again, that were made by our students for you to enjoy. Our student store is open. So if you need additional items, please let us know. It is a program that is designed for our students to learn. Also, we learned that at our special services site, they would benefit from a picnic table for students to congregate outdoors. And so on your behalf, we'll purchase a picnic table for that site. So thank you for everything that you do, and happy School Board Recognition Month.
Every day always feels like this, and today it feels like this, but even more, and with flowers. So thank you. For item 4A, the board will take a brief recess to celebrate School Board Recognition Month. We will resume our meeting at 7:25 p.m. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for the cake and celebration, and it was great to connect with everyone after the break. We are now moving on to item 5A, which is the introduction of Rachel Yee, Coordinator, Information Systems, District Business Services Division. Coordinator Yee?
Good evening, Board President Torres.
Oh, you can move the mic down if you want. There you go.
It's better. Good evening, Board President Torres, Member of Board, and Deputy Superintendent Mr. Travis. My name is Rachel Yee, and I'm the new Information System Coordinator. I bring over 10 years of experience in both a district and county level payroll and finance operations, which has helped me to build a strong foundations in data governance, system integration, and cross-department collaborations. I joined SMCOE in 2024 as a senior payroll audit and financial analyst, where I supported multiple districts by managing payroll audits, reconciliations, and compliance. A significant part of my job was focused on payroll tax reconciliation and reporting, ensure accuracy and timely filings. Prior to SMCOE, I spent nearly a decade with Jefferson Elementary School District, where I progressed through payroll and my accounting roles. My responsibility includes processing payroll, reconcile payroll against the general ledger, prepare and reviewing finance and budget reports. I also partner closely with HR on position control to ensure staffing and budget stay aligned. These combined experience have given me a comprehensive understanding of the financial operation from both a payroll and accounting perspective. I believe my deep understanding of payroll rules, regulations, and my commitment to accuracy, integrity, and continuous improvement, I am excited to support SMCOE and contribute to a smooth and efficient operations. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, thank you. Item 6 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not debatable and requires a unanimous vote for passage. An item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular order of business for separate discussion and action if any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve the consent agenda made by Trustee Love and it's seconded by Trustee Gerard. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0 and the consent agenda has been approved. For item 7A, Chris Schaus, Associate Superintendent, Educational Services Division, and Sarah Nosh, Executive Director, Educational Innovations, will provide the 2025 through 2026 Local Control and Accountability Plan, also known as our LCAP, mid-year report, including information on student data, family engagement, and intervention programs for the Corton Community Schools. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Torres, members of the board, and Deputy Superintendent Chavez. We are excited, yes, believe it or not, very excited about LCAP to be here to share with you our mid-year update, including information about not just student data, but family engagement and our intervention programs at the request of the board. So we have a lot to share with you today. What we're going to go over I'll give a refresher on the different components of the LCAP in preview of what you'll see at our annual report at the end of the year. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the context and the differences between writing an LCAP for a district and for a county office. We will share our 4 goals and highlighted metrics and progress that we've experienced so far throughout the year. And then we will turn it over to you for questions and feedback as part of our engagement process in developing the update for the annual and any potential changes to metrics or actions for next year. So when you get the full annual report, these are the elements that are included in the LCAP. So there's a lot of different sections. I know some of you are very familiar with it. A lot of sections that talk about our school programs, provide myriad information about demographics, data, and then also what we're doing to make those actionable. And in addition, you will get information about expenditures and funding sources and increased and improved services. A quick reminder also about the LCFF priority areas. So districts, when they write their LCAPs, they have 8 priority areas, and those are what are represented in that graphic. They're in 3 different categories. So conditions of learning, student outcomes, and engagement. County offices have 2 additional priority areas for expelled pupils and foster youth, and those are represented in Goal 4 for us, which we'll go over in a little bit. I think it was last week, Associate Superintendent Schaus and I attended a County Office of Education LCAP Writers Workshop presented by County Operated Student Programs in partnership with CDE. And at this workshop, it was a full-day workshop, Joshua Strong, who's an education administrator for CDE, actually presented this video. And we thought it was really important and kind of perfectly encapsulates why we have to make sure that we're picking the right tools, the right measurements, the right data points to really truly tell the story, because alternative schools are exactly that, alternative. So I will let the video speak for itself.
Constantly coming and going. Some might only stay with you for a few weeks. How in the world do you measure their progress? And how do you prove that your school is actually making a difference? Well, this is the exact challenge facing California's alternative schools, and the way they're solving it is pretty brilliant. Let's get into it.
And really, this is the question at the heart of it all. What happens when the very tools we use to track achievement just don't fit the students we're trying to help? How can we possibly know if we're actually helping them succeed?
I love this analogy because it's just perfect. You know, a yardstick is a great tool, it's accurate, it's reliable, but it's completely useless for telling you how hot or cold it is. The tool itself isn't broken, it's just being used in the wrong context. And that is exactly what's happening when we try to apply standard school metrics to these non-standard schools.
Right. So let's take a closer look at why that standard ruler of school performance just completely misses the mark in these really unique situations.
Okay, so to make this real, let's zoom in on a specific group of schools in California, the Juvenile Court and Community Schools, or JCCs for short. These programs are run by county offices of education, and you got to understand, by their very nature, they are worlds away from your typical neighborhood high school.
And wow, when you put them side by side, you really see the difference. In a traditional school, you expect students to be there for the long haul. But in a JCCS, students are often there for a much shorter time. Their academic histories can be, well, pretty choppy, and they move around a lot. The big takeaway here, their educational journey is anything but a straight line. So why would we try to measure it with a straight ruler?
And because that journey is so different, all the usual metrics, they just kind of fall apart. I mean, how can you measure a 4-year graduation rate for a student who's only been with you for 6 months? It doesn't make any sense. Often the student populations are so small that the data isn't even statistically valid. These kids are on a different path, so we need a different map. Okay, so we've established we have different schools with different students, which leads to a pretty logical next question, right? Shouldn't we have a different way of thinking about accountability? So you're probably thinking, if the main tools are broken, what do we do? Just throw our hands up and forget about accountability altogether? No, not at all. The solution, it turns out, is actually built right into the system. The entire key is hiding in plain sight in these 2 little words right here from the California Education Code, as applicable. It seems so simple, but this phrase is a total game changer.
So what does as applicable really mean? Well, in practice, it's the state basically saying, hey, we get it. We know that one size does not fit all. It gives county offices of education the power and the flexibility to say, you know what, that big statewide metric doesn't work for our kids. So we're going to use something else that actually shows the progress they're making.
So how does this flexibility actually turn into tools that schools can use? Well, it's not a free-for-all. There's a real structure to it.
The first major tool is something called the Dashboard Alternative School Status, or DAS. Think of it as a special note on the school's official report card. It's a flag that tells everyone, okay, this school is different, so we're going to apply a different set of rules here. So on the official California school dashboard, these schools are clearly marked. And here's the crucial part. While the state calculates a special one-year graduation rate for them, it's for informational purposes only. It's not a grade, it's not a weapon, it's a piece of information to help them learn and get better. That's a huge shift. But DAS is just the beginning. The real power of that little phrase, as applicable, comes from the choices you make about what data to use in the first place. And this is where things get really interesting.
And this brings us to the core decision, the central choice that these county offices have to make. Do you use a standard statewide metric, or do you build a local metric that's tailor-made for your specific students and programs?
This table really breaks it down beautifully. On one hand, look, if you have enough students and the statewide data actually tells a meaningful story for your program, great, use it. But if your student group is too small or that state metric just doesn't capture the real progress your kids are making, you have the power to go local. You can create a measure that truly, meaningfully reflects your student's journey.
So what does this actually look like? Here's a perfect example to make it concrete. Instead of relying only on those big annual state test scores, a JCSS program might use its own local tests, maybe given every 6 weeks. This local metric can show a student's growth in a really short amount of time, something that big once-a-year state test could never, ever capture.
And this really is what it's all about. This isn't about avoiding accountability. It's the opposite. It's about demanding a more honest, a more accurate, and a truer story of student success.
I really want to be clear here. The goal is not to get a free pass or avoid being held accountable. The goal is to find that sweet spot, that perfect balance, to create an accountability system that is both meaningful and fair. So for the folks on the ground, the educators doing this incredible work, it all comes down to asking a few really smart questions, like what do we actually want to measure here? Is this metric even valid for our kids? And this one is so important, does it show their growth over time, not just where they are at a single point in time?
Because finding that right balance between the big picture data and the individual student story,
That's what finally allows us to see these incredible stories of growth and resilience that were there all along, just waiting for the right tool to measure them.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If we can find a better, more thoughtful way to measure what truly matters for some of our most vulnerable students, well, why aren't we doing it for everyone?
I know we've shared with you before that the state has used some of our metrics and reports and presentations that we've given to you as examples for other juvenile court and community schools to show how we did a deep dive in accountability data, but it is an incomplete story. And so one of the things that we're going to be focusing on as we move into the third year of this 3-year LCAP and work on revisions is thinking about all of the measurements that we have, what's working, keep it in, what's missing, add it, and what needs to be changed, adapt it. Just as we ask our school programs to use improvement science and go through those cycles and adapt, adopt, or abandon based on what's being told, we want to bring meaningful data to you and have meaningful data to access all throughout the year that informs our instruction and our programming. So I hope you enjoyed that video as much as I did. I was so excited when I saw it because I thought it just so beautifully summed up our charge and how it really is about finding the right tools. So we'll jump into where are we at this point in the year. There are some metrics that we can't report out on yet that include things such as graduation rates or metrics that were intended for year 3. So what we're bringing today for you is a sample of the most relevant metrics from each of the goals, but happy, of course, to take questions about any that you don't see represented, and we can do our very best to bring you meaningful information either tonight or we can get back to you with that. So goal 1 is our academic access, engagement, and performance goal. And it's here for you to read. One thing that I do want to call out is that we still have Kemp included in our narrative. And that's because Kemp is currently a school with the CDS code. We would be the educational providers. It's not our school. We're not in charge of deciding if it's run or not. So if probation decides to run a program, we would step back in, be the educational providers. If Kemp is officially closed and no longer has a CDS code, it would not be part of our Court and Community Schools LCAP. So that's why you see it there. And then here are some of the highlighted metrics for you. So let's see. Okay. So the first is enhance parent and caregiver engagement. And we know that this is a very important topic, not only to our school teams, but also to all of you. And so we're really excited to share that there are a lot of different ways that our school teams are getting creative. You might remember last year, we had some attempts that were made that were unsuccessful. And it really led us to dig into the why behind it. And were we making things accessible? Were we creating the feel of a community? It's not a traditional school. And so sometimes that community feel really is missing for some parents. They don't feel a connection. So there have been multiple different things that have happened this year. One of the most exciting is that when we had our December CTE, Career Technical Education Masterclass at Hillcrest, we invited the parents and family members to come for the showcase, and the students presented to their family members. All but two family members were able to come. So the two students that didn't have anyone there, our teams in probation jumped right in and stood in for their families and were caring adults that they were able to present to. And that was in partnership with probation, which is something I'm excited to talk more about in Goal 2.
A process question. Do you want us to save questions to the end, or do you want us to interrupt you?
I would prefer till the end because I might.
Okay. No,
Is that okay?
That's
Okay.
fine.
Thank
I just
you.
wanted to know.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. We also have our bilingual family counselor, our therapeutic providers, an academic counselor, special services teams, and administrators and teachers who are reaching out regularly to families. We had conferences before school started. They were part of the development of the individual learning plans. They're getting quarterly updates, and they're meeting regularly at Gateway, not just with our families, but also with the district representation, because our goal is always to have the eye on their transition back if that's what's right and best for them. So there's been different methods that have been used. So we're excited to see how that pans out at the end of the year in the annual report. And then we adopted, with your approval, new curriculum last year. And so this year, we're really focusing on fidelity of implementation. And learning a whole new curriculum is a task. Learning, too, for some teachers is a big lift. And so we've really committed to ensuring that they have deep and meaningful and ongoing training for the curriculum. So you can see the dates of some of the trainings that we've done so far this year. And this year we have 3 extra non-student days for professional development. So we've made excellent use of those and are trying to ensure that our teams are supported and that we're making sure that the fit is right for our students. We always want to be data-driven about that. One other area for fidelity of implementation with curriculum and curriculum adoption is our staff had requested for us to look into something either in addition to or instead of Edgenuity, which is our online curriculum that's used often for credit recovery. And the theory is that subject.com would be more accessible and have more adaptive abilities than Edgenuity. So we are piloting that right now. And if it's something that proves to be a good match for our students, then we'll bring that back to you for adoption, again, either in addition to or in place of Edgenuity. The next metric we're bringing you is utilizing formative and summative curriculum-embedded assessments. And the intention behind this is, especially because our students are with us for, in many cases, short periods of time, we need to know in real time how they're doing, what they need, so that we can adapt our instruction and support. And so utilizing the curriculum embedded assessments allow us to know what we need to change, add, adapt, how we need to support them while they're going through the curriculum. And so all of the students were given the Carnegie formative assessments, that's the math curriculum. And we're also utilizing the actual assessments in the curriculum for the other subjects, and piloting with OYCR, the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, the SIPS reading intervention. I'm going to have more details about this. I know that was an area of interest, so I did a little deeper dive on that. But that's also giving us information about their literacy levels. So we're getting math and literacy right away, and then along as they're instructing, all subject areas utilizing what's in the curriculum. Metric 1.8 is about the individual learning plans and the development of those individual learning plans in a timely manner. We did have some unanticipated staff absences and resignations in the beginning of the school year, so we didn't hit the 10 days. And we also were able to get them completed for all of our students with engagement with the families. And so every student will have an individual learning plan that is being examined and adjusted as needed. Calling out in particular Canyon Oaks, this is done in conjunction with probation because the students also have master treatment plans. And so we always want to make sure that we're working in concert with other things so that we're adding to and supporting rather than making something additional that might not make sense. Jumping into SIPS, this is a short video from Dr. Michael Massa, who is the OYCR administrator who is partnering with us, and just let him quickly tell you why OYCR chose SIPS, and then I'll run through the elements of the program.
We know that a lot of the juvenile justice involvement has to do with a lack of foundational academic skills. It's easier for young people at their developmental level to accept that they're quote unquote bad and will exhibit the misbehavior than exhibit the reality that they don't have the skills that their peers have. And that creates a trajectory. And we've heard about the school to prison pipeline. And that's one of those avenues that accelerates young people fully immersed into this school to prison pipeline because of the lack of foundational skills that they have to be competitive with their peers. It's not that there aren't intervention programs. There are. But these are all the programs that are designed for schools in the community that don't always translate to the juvenile court school setting. And so that's where partnerships like with Collaborative Classroom and looking at the SIPS intervention and making the adjustments so that it fits the environment appropriately is so important, because there is nothing else that exists. And especially for our students who are functioning at that kindergarten through third grade level, the presumption by all other intervention material is we can just start at the fourth grade. By high school, they definitely at least are at the fourth grade level, but we now have data to show that that's not the case. I'm very protective of my students. And over the years, there have been myriad opportunities of people promising the world. And so I've learned to do my homework and make sure that I do my part to make sure that the partnership.
Okay. So Dr. Massa actually approached us because of the workforce navigator position that we have. That's an OYCR position, a grant that was given to probation contracts through us. That's the work that Jonas Barber is doing. And he wanted to have representation of this pilot across the state in different counties. And so we're really excited to be able to see how this works for our students. I put the very long acronym up at the top. That's what SIPS stands for. I could not memorize it, and I don't expect you to either. But this is just information for you about the key features. And so it's traditional literacy intervention curriculum. And within a juvenile court school, what we love about it is it's really targeted to our population. As Dr. Massa said, A lot of the intervention programs that are developmentally appropriate for older students assume a fourth grade level of literacy competency, and that's not always the case. So this actually starts with first grade level, but it is age and developmentally appropriate. So it provides dignity and interest for our students. And right now it's at no cost to us. So OYCR is providing the materials and the training to our staff. So we'd be able to sustain it if we decide that it's something we want to bring to you for adoption. And the intervention cycles are on a 30-day focus because that is the length of time of the average stay at Hillcrest. And so we want to make sure that if we're adopting this curriculum or bringing it to you for approval, that it's not something that requires a more traditional longitudinal time with the intervention program. So stay tuned for more information about that, but it's a very exciting opportunity. And then finishing out goal 1, this is about developing our ongoing student monitoring and our GPAs and credit recovery percentages. So the thing that I want to highlight is that we have 2 committees at Corton Community School. One is our MTSS, Multi-Tiered System of Supports team, and then a Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, or PBIS committee. You'll hear more about PBIS in goal 2, but our staff is really taking the initiative to ensure that we're building in mechanisms for those data review cycles to happen consistently. They're happening right now. As we move into year 3, we really want to see it happening every month, as was intended in our year 3 timeline for LCAP. And so we're really, really close to being able to launch that. So we're excited to be on timeline for that. And then you have some data about GPAs and credit recovery. Moving to goal 2. Goal 2 is our social emotional learning and positive behavior interventions and supports goal. And here it is for you. One of the areas that I want to highlight is the tremendously valuable, incredible, high-level partnership that we have with Coordinator Greg Fry in the Safe and Supportive Schools team. And having the PBIS Technical Assistance Center awarded to us for our region has been a great opportunity for Coordinator Fry to show that we're going to start inward and make our programs model programs and move out. So while he's supporting and the team is supporting other districts and schools, he's really been dedicated to focusing on our Corton Community Schools. So a shout out and a gratitude to him. Looking at the highlighted metrics, the first one is about points awarding. And for our PBIS point system, we use 5-star. And the intention is not to capture tally marks. The intention is to record when we're giving students behavior-specific praise so they know what to do, what works, and so we can also look at what they need support with. So our goal was to have a certain amount of points awarded daily by each staff member. We think that the data is going to be a lot cleaner coming to you at the annual, because right now the practice is that some staff members, support staff, enter on behalf of teachers, and we can't tell. So now we have scanners and UPC codes or QR codes and all kinds of ways to get real-time in the moment data that will give us not only more accuracy about who, but also when. I spoke a little bit about the PDSA cycles for academics. The same thing is the expectation for social, emotional, and behavioral support. And so the PDSA cycles, again, are happening inconsistently, and the committee is working to move that usage to more regular, building in kind of what do we need to tweak and change to make that happen. And the same with our student support forum. We want to be able to ensure that we're looking at a least to most intervention structure. So we're intervening at a tier 1 level and then building up as needed. And so we're moving our student support form to hopefully being entirely digital so that we can get better data pulls from that system, so we know what we're working with in support from our data specialist, who has recently-ish started and is phenomenal. This next one is really exciting because we wanted to build capacity of our teachers and staff in implementation for SEL, social emotional learning, and positive behavior intervention and supports skills building. And when we think about who is a part of this work, it's everybody in the building, every single person in the building. And that includes our partners at probation. And so one of the ideas that Coordinator Fry and Associate Superintendent Schaus had was, why don't we bring our probation partners to the PBIS conference? And why don't we develop a joint statement about what this means to us and how we're going to merge our systems to complement each other? And there was really deep work that was done and continues to be done. We've always had a great relationship with probation, but this really took it to a different level. So again, gratitude to Coordinator Fry, Associate Superintendent Schaus for having that vision. And our probation team is very excited about it as well. And then you have our suspension and expulsion rates, which I won't go too deep into, but happy to answer questions if you have any. And I'm going to turn over to Associate Superintendent Schaus to go over 3 and 4.
Good evening, Board President and Board of Trustees. A few things within Goal 3. So that is our goal that is focused on CTE. As you recall, we're really looking to create pathways. So those are those 3 course pieces. We need at least 2 to make a completer. So as you look at our data and what we've looked at in the course of building the LCAP and then further forward, a few of the key components that I want to call forward, because a tremendous amount of progress has been made, was the increase of students having access to CTE courses. So our benchmark piece was looking at, can we get at least 75% of our kids into access? So 100% of our kids this last semester at Gateway had access to CTE courses. We actually are incorporating, we did a masterclass model, which is those 15, 16-day models that you guys see some of the showcases with up at Hillcrest. And now it's flipping to patient care also being run at Hillcrest. So now we have a teacher that will be offering that course as well, which will give you, again, 100% read of students having access to the CTE course. Again, within those courses, we really want to get it to 2 courses because that's that concentrator course that we're looking for that pathway. You'll see that we've done the work in 3.2 to make sure that those courses are being developed so that when we get there, they're available to us. And again, keep in mind as we're watching the data of how our kids are progressing, how well are they doing in these classes versus the traditional classes that we've run, and are they continuing as Sarah's suggested, is this still the metric and the measurement that we want to continue to move forward with? And I will say, coming through some of the preliminary data, and you'll see some of the GPAs and points here, we have 100% pass rate in the kids that have taken those CTE courses still. So, the grade span is still distributed across D through A line for that pass rate, but substantially different than when we run traditional courses. The other piece down there, and again, this is not deployed yet at this point, but we're on track and on pace to hit that goal, which would be that our kids have access to work experience. What's interesting about this one is in working with CSM and Skyline. I almost said Shoreline. In working with Skyline as well, one of the things that we've done is already put this in the portal so that when it opens and we get approval, which will be February, that would offer us the opportunity to be able to make sure that our kids are getting college credit in addition to making sure that they actually have that work experience. This would allow us to even do that at Hillcrest. So the conversation with probation would be, what kind of jobs and opportunities may be at Hillcrest? When I was working in probation, there are different facility needs, whether that's laundry or culinary pieces or additional things that students can help out with depending on how well they're doing. And in this case, it would allow us to actually be able to contribute to true live payment for students completing those tasks effectively, in which case that money would get put into their accounts prior to them leaving. So again, great opportunities in opening up the value of being able to reward kids for that work and doing it well. Last 2 goal pieces within CTE, you'll see we're looking at increasing engagement as well as that chronic absenteeism. So there's a lot of factors that go into this, but what I will say is, and you can't see this yet because it will be in the final report, but what I can say is that's 90%. That is right on point with what you would get in an attendance line at many of our comprehensive schools. And when I unpacked that and looked back, within a year and a half of running different pedagogies and staff deploying different ways of connecting with the kids in this area, we were at a 71% attendance rate, and that is now at 90%, and that's a year and a half. So for those that have not worked in attendance, it is incredibly challenging even to get a 2 or 3% push. So the idea that our kids are committed and the staff are committed to really designing programming and relevant things that our kids want to come to school for. And huge shout out to the staff that are on the ground, really making that happen and trying something different. You'll also see in that last piece, chronic absenteeism. And again, data with the cohort piece with this can be sometimes challenging, but our baseline, which is what we were hoping to get in that 24-25 school year, we had 70% of our kids come to us in chronic absenteeism. So when we get referred kids, that was our number, that was our threshold of baseline. First semester, you'll see to the right-hand side, 33% of our kids now. So huge movement in terms of kids showing up and reducing that chronic absenteeism piece that's happening within our schools as well. Goal 4, so this is the unique goal. It includes our school programming folks, but it also includes our safe and supportive folks that are working with foster youth in the rest of our, across the rest of our county, supporting foster youth. Our first 2 facing goals are really more reflective of us. Those 2 are under preliminary data pending. So one of the pieces that happens within our SIS systems, which is ARIES, is that it doesn't necessarily talk to foster focus. So foster focus is where the state is really monitoring our foster youth. So we are working with our data teams to make sure that those data points are pulled over. We've run some of the data by hand, but in terms of making sure that we present accurate information, those preliminary pending pieces, we'll come back to you with them. And we are intending to come back at the next board meeting to be able to have an additional piece to the fluency of this. The last piece, which is really facing our districts, is related to the amount of training and support that other foster folks within those districts get as well. You'll see that their benchmark and their goal lines, safe and supportive work in regards to 100% response rates that they're looking for in multiple areas there on the right-hand side. They have met those metrics already, so there's no reason to believe that they would be off track by the time we end the end of the school year. And this is an area that's being developed, so I know Executive Director Notch and Executive Director Arbizu have been working with each other to say, is this the metrics that we want to use? And is there something more meaningful for our kids across the county that we should be using for foster in relationship to supporting and monitoring that? And with that, we will thank you for the time and then open for questions, which I'm sure that we have.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Trustee Lev?
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation, and hearing the data on attendance change is just wonderful. And I think it all goes to engagement, which I think has really stepped up. I have been in classrooms where I've seen things that didn't feel like an engagement, and I've been in classes where I've seen it. And so I think it's making a difference. So thank you for all of that. And the literacy work, really important. I just had a couple questions. One, this is maybe not directly related, but I am curious where we are with finding a student for our board.
I can respond to that. Ian Bain and I have a meeting scheduled with the Youth Commission that's coming up next couple of days so that we can work on that process. But also we're developing the process for our student programs, and so that's still under development. I think I had a conversation with President Torres and Vice President Gerard, and it seems like that there's a pleasure of the board to, even if we have to start with the student trustees in the middle of the year, that there's interest in that. So we're moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you. That's important work. Another question I had was, I noticed when I looked at the SARC, like there's 7th graders. Do we have 7th graders and 8th graders that in Hillcrest right now, or younger than high school? Because everything we hear about is about high school and credits, but educating a 7th and 8th grader is a different game.
Absolutely. And that's a great question. Thank you. It also has an impact on the metrics. One very specific example is we don't offer credit recovery for middle school. It's a high school function in our in our programs. So we did separate out middle school and high school. We do have some middle school students right now. And I'm unsure of the length of time that they're expected to stay. Sometimes we don't know until they get released. But we do have the capacity to serve middle school students as well as high school students. So when it makes a difference, you'll see that data pulled out so that it's not impacting the high school rates. If we put in 0% for credit recovery, it would pull the average down.
Right.
So we try to delineate that, and we do that for Canyon Oaks as well.
Okay, and then another question. Do we have, I know one of the goals was to really look at long-term success of the students who have been through our programs. Do we have any progress on that? I'm curious.
I think a couple of things. One, yes, we're getting more of the summative reports. So I think as we come back with the next update piece prior to the final, so that you'll have another opportunity to see, you'll have more of what's happening within the ILP and the progress measurements, but you will also see the work that is actually being done by the workforce navigator piece too. So within Jonas's work of the transition pieces back with students that are connected, and some are released to the community and they are done with high school. But there is also a monitoring piece that he's putting in place to see what ends up happening with our kids. So he'll actually be able to present additional information that wasn't necessarily a driver in the LCAP, but now may actually be something that we want to look at to say, should we be monitoring it in this way? Because it's a metric that is incredibly valuable to see which resources they actually are connected to long-term as well, which it allows us to see what referrals were placed for students for support, which ones they're using or their parents are using. So he's doing incredible work in relationship to really looking at those transition pieces too, which I think may be a track that is of interest. It's definitely of interest to us. We do think it's going to be of interest to the board as well in terms of seeing that longevity of how are our kids really doing, and from a whole child perspective of are they attached to the resources and receiving them.
Thank you.
One thing to add is that for any of our students who have IEPs who graduate, we have a requirement to collect post-secondary data to determine their outcomes the year following their graduation. So that's happening with our students with disabilities, which we know is a high percentage. But I'm so glad that you brought up the workforce navigator position, because that our intention is to make sure, and it's happening, it's more than an intention. Our practice is to make sure that all students have that support and in the immediate transition and then ongoing. So long answer, short answer, yes.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bonini?
Thank you for the presentation and for adding in all the extra things. That was great. I have some other questions, but just based on what Trustee Love asked, I wanted to ask a question about the outward transitions. I know that was something that we talked about in the Gateway design discussions, and I don't think it got kind of elevated as much as maybe we need to. But I'm curious about Jonas's role. We've met with him when we visited. We've seen all the programs. We sort of know he's working with DOR and they're doing some really important things. But what I don't know is whether there is someone, whether it's Jonas or someone else, who's doing what I would call like the hand-holding of the students when they go back. Yeah, we want to know whether they're connected, but if they are to be going back to school, are they getting there? Are they getting settled in? Is there somebody who oversees that? And that's my first question.
Sure. So we are not where I would expect us to be in that measurement too. So I do remember having the conversation during the reimagining piece of what would it look like to make sure that our kids do make it back to the district. We do follow up. So the counselor is following up, making sure that the enrollment pieces are there. Our administrators are talking to the directors of student services and those that are integral in taking a student back in on reentry. There is an additional legislative piece with AB 1230 that is going to require our districts and the district boards on their side to actually monitor these pieces too, to prevent that dropout or that enrollment piece that could be lost in transition. But in terms of it being somebody directly from Gateway lens back to districts at this point, we don't have anybody lifting that work at this point. I think there would be divisions and conversations around that with our bilingual coordinator and potentially our youth development specialist. But at this point, there isn't anybody assigned directly to that work of transition for our kids coming out of Gateway.
Okay, that's helpful because
Absolutely.
as we're asking questions about everything's interconnected, right? And so as we're talking about things like in our budget committee session, just as an example, one of the things we'll talk about it later when we do a report out, but is finding what are the priorities that we want to help uplift. And so I think that is going to be, maybe on the list now, so it's helpful. That's helpful information.
Yes, and the grant parameters around Jonas's work really being held by probation in this case, it does limit the ability for him to be able to work with students that don't necessarily qualify. So essentially any student moving into Hillcrest, little easier to qualify that because they are justice impacted directly. But in working with Gateway students, there is a different threshold before he can kind of move into that space or potentially even take on that additional piece. And with his role right now, even with the transition service that we have seen effective for our Hillcrest kids, that is another year out. So we will lose funding in that piece from probation to be able to supply that transition service to in about a year.
Okay. Is it something that might renew, or is it just going to have to be
It's a grant piece through probation itself. So it came out from the state of California to probation departments. And then they connected with us to say, is this something that you guys can do? They didn't have the capacity to do it for themselves at that point. But I don't know that it will renew. I will say that we're one of about 8, I believe, that are involved in this particular project. And it's with Amity and a few others that are actually vendors within probation. So I have a feeling with OYCR's work and how they're trying to triangulate, really trying to get nonprofit and services that can stabilize juveniles. I think they probably will extend it, but it should be something that we should look at in terms of planning and see, is it effective and is that something we want to keep doing?
Thank you. And then, so one of my main, my main focus on a lot of things is this literacy piece, right? So for years we were asking about this and what are we doing? And, we do a lot to support the students and their curriculum. And so I have a zillion questions about it really. But first I just want to say, I'm so grateful that it's happening, that we're at least starting to this focus. Cause I think we've talked about it so much, like that it's definitely a need. And we're listening to Mr. Massa, and he's saying, we know this is part of how students end up there. And I think a lot of us think that. So that was kind of great to, I guess, get that reflection there. So my questions around it, a lot of them were answered actually, like why SIPs and this and that. But really, I'm interested to know what we know so far. Like, do we see any trends for our students? Because I know we have obviously our own population. Is it what we think? Are they lower in the literacy levels? That's one of my questions. And then you touched a little on training for teachers and how this is happening, or training for somebody. So my questions are really like, I want to just know more about it, and maybe it's not all in place yet. So it might be coming, but my questions are like, who's getting trained? Is it just at Hillcrest, or is it happening with other programming? Are we doing this at Gateway? What is the long term of this? And then also kind of a budget piece, because of course I'm looking around what other people are doing. And I sent a note to somebody because there was an article about Alameda County who's also doing the SIPs, and then they're like, hiring a literacy specialist and kind of having someone own it. So like, who owns it? That's another question. That's a lot of questions, but it's really just like, can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and how it's maybe going to be sustainable and who it's touching and how it's working?
Sure. And if I miss anything, just jump back in. It is very important, and I'm glad that we're able to do something with such depth. One of the biggest, in fact, I think it's the biggest impact to the reduction of recidivism is literacy and graduation. And so it is definitely a priority area. Right now, the person who is holding it is really OYCR. So it's the OYCR team. We're in the process of training and implementation. Their focus for this pilot is Hillcrest. But I did talk to Dr. Massa about, we have 2 other Corn Community Schools. Would we be able to train staff and roll this out across all of our schools? And he said, absolutely. Like the data that they will collect will be for Hillcrest because they're trying to get that statewide juvenile court school information. So that will expand into Gateway and Canyon Oaks training. And it really only applies to students who are below fourth grade literacy level. So it's not going to be all of our students. It's going to be a very targeted population of students who wouldn't benefit or be able to access other intervention programs. But the key feature is it's age appropriate as well as developmentally appropriate, which is so important. Remind me of some of the other questions. I'm so sorry.
No, that was a lot. And then I'm just going to add one more, and then I think I'll be done with my questions for now. But, you know, I was doing a lot of research in the last year on this specific topic, like adolescent literacy, and we're focusing on it with SMC SBA. We're doing something next month, or is it next month? Yeah, it is next month. And I know Sacramento has like Sacramento County Reads. So they have a huge focus on this. They're doing a training in a few weeks. And, you know, so I wanted to share that. I don't know if you all know about it. But anyway, I'm really just so focused on, you know, making the impact for this. So I just, you know, I want to make sure that we're supporting it and that when we're talking about it being with dignity and all the other things, when you talk about adolescents having to kind of backstep, and we have a different population, but it's happening in a lot of other schools too. So not backstep, but like bolster what their skills are. And a lot of the discussion happens around what you talk about all the time, like scaffolding it into how do you use that in their actual curriculum and all of that. And so that's, you know, my hope is that it's more of that, but that's obviously another whole piece. But
Yes.
Is that part of what you're trying to hopefully maybe build it into?
Yes, absolutely. And at the next board meeting, I can bring more information to you about literacy interventions across all of Court and Community Schools, because that's a priority area for Principal Siam and Assistant Principal Arenas. And they've been doing some really cool stuff with the students. So I can bring more detailed information about that at the next board meeting. But and of course, we have the wonderful Mrs. Chris Cannon, who has made literacy and reading for pleasure so accessible to our students that if we ever schedule something during their library time, we hear about it. And so it's lovely to have youth who want to read at whatever access point that is. And our job is to make sure that everybody has an access point.
I think just to add a piece that's really unique to SIPS as well, and as you guys experience it and see some of the lessons that will be up there as well, one of the things that is really unique to it, and I've come out of a SIPS district, which we had vertical alignment within this, but what I will say is very unique about it is because you can do it by skill base and smaller groups and pullouts, we have our paras also going through the training, which is incredibly different paradigm shift in terms of how we deploy folks and supports in classrooms. But many of the skill pieces within SIPS aren't just about the direct instruction process. It is about the practice and the fluency and the phonemic awareness that students practice with somebody, and that can be done through paras and others. So, you know, our site leaders are very conscious of this, so they do have our paras involved in the process too. Which would allow for us to have some flexibility with that in that classroom and skill base, that we could have a teacher and a para working with two different level pieces or skill bases of SIPS in the same classroom as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Alvaro?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, both of you. I would try not to get emotional talking about SIPS because I know at least you have heard me rant, and I've been doing it for decades, Bev knows, that our kids don't read well enough. And that the spiral of they don't read well enough, they fail in school, they act up, they get further back. It's just, it's obvious and it's there. And I've spent enough time around these kids as a group, you know, to know that this is real. And the idea that they're saying, no, these kids don't come in reading at a fourth grade level by default. They read where they read. And some of them are reading at kindergarten level. And we can have kindergarten level books that aren't insulting to them. That's just amazing to me. And I'm so grateful that you're able to make that partnership and that you're doing that work with them. Just an idea that occurred to me because as I know you know, Krista, I do a lot of work with as a volunteer with San Mateo County Library System, teaching adult literacy, especially English learners. That's what I'm doing. But there's a whole program, and I'd be happy to connect you with the right person, that's doing literacy at the library level in communities all around the county. So that perhaps as some of our kids transition away from us, they could be tied right in to a one-on-one tutor, for instance. There's a lot of that going on, or an additional literacy program to just keep bringing them along, rather than you did a great job, we got you up to 4th grade level, and now you're graduating. Just that sort of thing. So I'd be happy to tie you into the person in charge of those programs.
Absolutely. I think anytime we have leads or things that we can investigate and see if it's a match for our students, and absolutely we'd be willing to take the information.
All right, I'll connect you with it.
Trustee Gerard?
Yes, I had a question, because I know that in the evaluations that we do with our students to find out what the different levels are, that a lot of times in the past there was so much resistance from the students that it was really hard to get a read on exactly where they were and what they knew or did not know, or how they were doing or not doing. With this new process, is that helping to improve the cooperation between the students and the teachers so that we can get a more valid read on where they are?
I'd like to take turns. I think of it as assessment stealth mode, because it's very different than sitting a student in front of a computer adaptive test and saying, now you're going to do this thing. And they're like, I'm not really invested in this thing. And it doesn't give us any information that's actionable in some cases. By using the curriculum embedded assessments, we're doing it as part of their instruction. So it doesn't appear as this extra thing that is going to, in many cases, our students get the adaptive part of those kind of traditional assessments. And when they see the level going down in response to answers they've given, it's completely defeating and you lose all buy-in. So this is our way of not only allowing we keep coming back to dignity, right? Like more dignity in how we're getting that information, but also more timely and more specific. So we can tell in whatever unit we're working on, this is where they are in the skill set that's necessary to work through that unit and make our adjustments. So yes, I think it's definitely way more informative and valid data. So we're excited about that.
So am I.
Great.
I think that's wonderful. When you get a student, a high school student that comes in, and they literally are, and we know it happens, at a kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade level in their literacy, how are they reacting to the new program? That would be a reason for a kid to shut down, right? They would be embarrassed. And with the new program, is that taking some of that embarrassment away of them knowing where they are? They all know what they can and can't do. And does that help? Because it concerns me. Poor kid, it's not their fault, but if they're at that level, they desperately need help.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of even our courses that are run through CTE and other pieces, is that you're seeing student strengths that they don't get to display when they come to us. So you're automatically building somebody's resilience and saying, I can see you and I can see what your skills are and your talents are. And within the curriculum of what they're already using and experiencing with their teachers, and then they get to talk about that differently or demonstrate their learning differently. You guys have been to the showcases. You know that some are more elevated in their ability to be able to articulate that in writing or presentations. But I think this is the growth piece of saying, when we get our kids, we have to give them a place to start, and we have to completely champion them for all of the pieces that come forward and what we get. And I think what we have seen, and hopefully what you guys have seen as you guys have gone out, is this increase in the kids being willing to give a little bit more each time. And I think that's coming very much so from a nurturing and caring staff that is saying, this isn't ideal. This isn't exactly where I want to be with the rigor level, but the kids are bought in. They're showing up, which is a huge piece of this with that attendance piece and the chronic absenteeism. And that allows us to keep pushing forward with that next piece. So I'm seeing the results. And although sometimes I go out and staff as well, we're like, oh man, I wish we could have even more urgency and push this through. That's not what happens. And when we have kids that have been failed in a system, got all the way to 9th or 10th grade and then land with us, it is our job to be nurturing and caring and hold them as whole child. So I think giving them some experiences that we can see the talents that you do have, and wherever you're at, you get to progress, and we're going to reward that and see that. I'm seeing that in the curriculum pieces, the hands-on pieces, the CTE pieces. And I think that very much so is just testament to the staff saying they've always cared deeply about our kids. Now they have some materials that they can also use with the kids to help engage them in a different way.
I'm going to take the hands-on part of your answer and expand a little bit, because I saw something incredible at our professional development day when we first came back. I spent all day with court and community, and we were doing an example, or had a question where you turn and talk to your partner, and I was sitting next to Coordinator Fry, and we were talking, and all of a sudden our attention was completely turned to one of our staff was playing with this hand with really long nails. And I thought, what in the world is that? And so we asked, and what we got was a perfect example of universal design for learning, allowing for multiple means of expression, because our students know things. And if we are not taking into account the way that we're measuring and whether the measurement itself creates an impact to their ability to show us what they know, we're missing the mark. And so our teachers at Gateway had created this alternate assessment or assignment for one of our students. I'm sure you remember the students who love manicures and nails. Yeah. And so the nails were about this long, very, very big. And they're just, and we were looking at the detail, and the assignment was, I believe it was for social studies, and they were taking some period of time, and the assignment was create nail art that represents what you know about this and then present it. And it was so detailed and so incredible and mind-blowing that I think that's one of the most special things about our staff, is that all the challenges that they have with multi-grade level classes and students coming in at different academic levels, they are just masters at figuring out what do you need and how can I get it out of you. So the next time that you visit Gateway, I would encourage you to ask to see the hand, because it was really a thing to behold.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one more quick question. Everybody's saying hurry up. But it's about CTE. Do we have designated teachers for CTE at both Gateway and Hillcrest?
Yes, no. So this is how it's currently working. So right now we had Janice as well as Kirby. So John Kirby and Janice Pellizzari, they actually went back, did their certification. So they have their CTE credentials as well in actually multiple areas. So we're allowed to kind of deploy different pieces. This is something we need to keep having the conversation with staff as to what may be in their background that could qualify as well. The first semester we had both at Gateway. That was intentional. We were keeping staff as whole as possible. This semester we did have a personnel piece at Hillcrest happen where our science teacher is not with us currently, which opened up an opportunity and a conversation with staff about how might we meet that need. And that came back with looking at John Kirby doing a patient care piece right now with Hillcrest. So we do have him moving to Hillcrest 2 periods a day, I believe, to be able to support patient care. First couple of days have gone incredibly well. But we had to move through the process of getting the materials up there as well. So right now you're seeing those 2 pieces. We do run master classes at both campuses still through one of the grants. But in terms of having dedicated staff at each one right now, no, we're not at the place where we have enough pathway function to be able to get them stable at all sites.
Thank you.
I'll be very, very quick to add that as part of one of our grants, our CTE grants, we're exploring how to bring that to Canyon Oaks as well, because the structure of their school day is very different in that they have academics half day, so they have therapeutic activities. So we are exploring how can we bring access to Canyon Oaks in a meaningful way that could just be different for them.
Well, thank you so much for the report this evening. It's wonderful and it's very encouraging. So thank you. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you. Trustee Arias?
Thank you. Well, I just want to say that most of my questions have been answered, but by being the last, but I definitely want to say, make sure that we really uplift every person who's involved in this. I appreciate you come and bring the report and you do a lot of the work, but I can only imagine you were talking about how specific, individuals within the schools just pour their heart in this. And when you talk about universal design for learning, I was like, okay. So I was going to mention it. As a special education teacher, you have students who have completely different levels of reading and you go back into, everybody's mentioning the word dignity, right? The students are the same age. So they lived in this world for this many years, regardless of how their, capacity of or supports that they've had to be able to be in math and literacy levels. But their knowledge and understanding of life and things that they are interested when you do student center is like it blooms. And when you talk about CTE, I'm really excited. I know that this is, is work in progress, so I'm excited. But I really look forward to what's going to come in. I do have one question. In the goal number 2, when you have support students in skills building to improve safe and pro-social choices, you have the desired outcome, reduce disciplinary incidents in office referral by 20%. I was wondering what's the baseline? What are we reducing from 20%?
So right now, we're setting the baseline this year, and we're using the student support form submissions to measure the rate of referrals. The intention being, if we are providing students with behavior-specific praise, we're doing all the instruction in social emotional learning and kind of pro-social behaviors, we are going to see situations that would potentially require, in the past, a disciplinary referral or result in be able to be handled at the classroom level, and or see a steady extinction of some of those behaviors because of the skills building. So it's the best way. It's hard to measure behavior because you're looking for something you don't see. And so that's our best tool. So we're trying to use the thermometer instead of the yardstick to say we know. So using the student support form will help us set that baseline, and then in year 3 we can really look at how we're reducing.
Yeah, and just a comment, like you mentioned, behavior is a way of communicating,
Absolutely.
right? So our students are communicating through their behavior. So I was wondering if you can explain more about the student support form, like what's in the form, what is it that you're getting from those incidents and reports in the student form?
Sure. It's your turn. Do you want to take it? Okay.
So this actually was designed, it's used primarily in a TFI, so tiered fidelity inventory. It's aligned to PBIS. And the idea behind it, they call it SWIS, but there's factors that you look at. So you look at where the location of the behavior happens. I see Hugo's nodding. You look at the location of where the behavior happens, how many folks might be involved in the incident. So you're actually looking at the parameters of what it may potentially be setting up the behavior. So if you end up with office referrals that are indicating always the same location, always the same teacher, but these things aren't necessarily happening other places, then it opens up the conversation to say, so what is happening here that's working for the student, and what might we be able to put in place over here so that they aren't in that position? But essentially what it looks at is, what are the supports that we've tried? Is this a place where we need to help reteach the expectations? Does the student really understand what they're being asked to do? But the idea behind it is that no longer should office referrals be a punitive function. It should be a way of communicating to us what may the teacher have tried, what did other staff try. is there something going on that this is, Edith's been fine for 3 quarters and now fourth
Yeah.
quarter, something's going on and we're getting an intake of office referrals? That's a sign of behavior for us as well. So within that support form, it actually indicates to us, it may be new behavior. It may be something that we've never seen from Edith before. But it also may be something that we've seen, no, this is actually moving in a direction where it's only in specific areas. So let's call her and let's have a conversation and see if there is something, maybe we need to increase check-in and check-outs, maybe additional mental health supports and check-ins with ESS are a priority. So it really does match, and that's what the form is intended to do, is elicit information about what's been tried, and also allow us to be able to connect with the student to say, let's have a conversation about this. But really gone are the days of using office referrals for the necessary
Punitive,
piece
yeah.
of punitive function. It's really a form for us of getting information about what's happening in the behavior so that the site administrator and the teacher can talk about what might next steps be or how do we approach this differently.
In a follow-up, does the form by any chance provide, or maybe after the incident or what you're going to be looking at, family environment and situations that, like you said, Edith was behaving well, all of a sudden, now you see it in every classroom maybe, right? Or certain classrooms where it triggers what's happening at home or something that just happened to the family or to the student, but we don't know because they're not telling us as teenagers, right?
Family contact and engagement is on there as one of the support level pieces to do
Great.
outreach to, or have we communicated with the family that we're seeing something different as well? And sometimes it's a result of family environment. Sometimes it's a
Exactly.
result of not knowing, right? But yes, family engagement is a piece on that form that indicates how we communicate with family, or are we getting information from family that we should be aware of.
Great. I appreciate that because there are areas as immigration status or domestic violence where students might not going to report and they're not going to tell you what's happening at home, and that might be interfering with their behavior at school, right? So I appreciate that you're thinking of all the possibilities.
And I will say the staff is on it and very strong about the approachability. There's been times that I've shown up to the office and walked in and a kid is in a very deep conversation with one of our administrators or our teachers about something that's very vulnerable. And that testament to the environment that they've built. So I think a lot of pieces probably aren't even hitting. I'm actually questioning whether the metric will work or not, because I don't think we're going to need the form as frequently because our kids are very much so communicating those needs with our staff directly at the moment.
And knowing that it's a delicate subject because we, mandated reporters, right? So it's complicated, but I appreciate
it. Is.
Yes, I appreciate it. And then lastly, I just want to, on your second page, you talk about pupil suspension rates. So the desired outcome is fewer than 5 suspensions. And I see Gateway, Hillcrest, Kenyonock in there. So Hillcrest has 4 suspensions, which is, under your desired outcome. I was just wondering what happens when this suspension for students, is there any future opportunity, or what happened with a suspended student at Hillcrest?
Sure. So Hillcrest, and this will be an area I'm not actually sure we're going to meet the metric in by the end of this year. So if we're at 4 and we're at mid-year, this may actually be over our 5. So that is something that we'll watch, and I think there's an appropriateness. So when we do need to suspend and it's a last resort function, especially at Hillcrest, then that's what we'll do. But I think in honoring this particular case, the number of suspensions that we're actually looking at, that also could have been one youth that may have been experience some challenging events. So, again, when you look at the number of suspensions, it isn't necessarily always for students. That's the number of incidents that were suspended. So what we typically have done in order to make sure that a student also receives work on unit, et cetera, as long as the student is safe. So we do have to work with probation to make sure that in general, a suspension is coming from something that became so unsafe in Hillcrest that they needed to remove the student from the school setting. In general, that hasn't been multiple days. If it is, and probation assesses it and says it's too much of a risk to bring the student back on, our staff has worked with the administration there to say, can we go on the unit to make sure that we provide work or do check-ins? This is one of the reasons about 3 years ago, we were in CSI for, so comprehensive school improvement pieces around suspensions. This is much lower. I don't anticipate that that's going to be the case. But we do provide services on unit, whether that is additional work or somebody working with the student. It could be just an assignment that someone's filling in. But they do outreach on the unit when we end up in that situation.
Okay, well, thank you. That concludes my questions. And
Absolutely.
I just, again, thank you very much for all the work that you're doing and the report today.
Trustee Benini?
Oh, I just wanted to ask one follow-up question to what Edith was just asking. In terms of the suspensions or that data, and I remember that prior data. I think what I heard you just say, but maybe I want to clarify, is sometimes it's probation's making that decision, not our teachers, right? Maybe, is that accurate?
We're the only ones that can make the decision to put a suspension on the list, I guess, if you were to look at the technicality of how we're coding it. But by law, if we remove a student from their placement in education, which they're supposed to be with us, that would be a suspension. In this case, the administrator was working with the administration at juvenile hall. Student became unsafe in the classroom. It impacted other students, and they actually needed to remove the student, which kind of led to a suspension from that point. So it's not a joint decision. It is us, and we move to try to get our kids back in as safely as possible to do so. But if there is something else that happens on the unit in addition, and they can't have a student, there could also be a non-contact because of whatever happened in that group. So we have to kind of renegotiate, where might that student be better placed? Is there another classroom that we have? We try to move them back into reentry as quick as possible. But it isn't probation saying we're suspending on this. It's only us that can suspend. But in that environment, they will tell us if it's unsafe to have that student working with another student.
Well, it sounds like it's part and parcel of that relationship that you have with them. Like, you have to be able to have those conversations, I'm guessing. But I do appreciate, I didn't realize that if the students are out, that we would actually have a mechanism or a person, some process that would make sure they're getting their education.
And it wasn't always like that. This is something that we did learn during CSI time, which was we actually ended up hiring a specific teacher on special assignment that would support this area because it was something that triggered on our dashboard. And the suspensions were much higher than they currently are. So that is also testament to the relationship with probation and working out, hang on a second, like, is it really at the level and can we get them back into school? But our staff have continued that work of saying, if it's possible and when it's possible, we'll absolutely go on the unit to be able to make sure that they're still getting materials.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Even like, I just want to like add the layer too of that. I've learned through some of the data that I've seen through, our sources and others, that most of our students have IEPs. And so then I'm worried about FAPE, but I'm worried about them, if it's related. And I mean, it's Hillcrest, but that's complicated. And I think we have to make sure that we're giving them their.
It is,
It
and
sounds
we
like we're
do
trying.
follow the same pieces and protocol in terms of like, if it does trigger a manifest, because we don't want things sitting on kids' records either, like they sit in our student information system. So for us, if we believe that it is attached to a disability, we'll have the staff look at, was it a manifest of the behavior, so that we can make sure that we're doing the right thing for the students' records as well.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
No comments from the public.
Thank you. Thank you for taking turns and modeling shared leadership. Chris, you're not free. For item 8A, we have Chris Schaus, Associate Superintendent. Oh, there was no action take on that item. I can't remember if I said that. We're moving on to item 8A. Chris Schaus, Associate Superintendent, Educational Services Division, is present to answer any questions the board may have regarding the 2024 to 2025 San Mateo County Office of Education School Accountability Report Cards, also known as SARCs, for the Corton Community Schools and Special Education programs that was published in the 2025 through 2026 year. Associate Superintendent Schaus.
I'm actually going to keep this probably your briefest item, and for good cause. So this is actually what Sarah and I were referring to in terms of the metrics that come up. So you saw, and I'll call forward all of those little dash lines. So just a reminder, we are, from a compliance standpoint, we do have to bring this for public consumption and where we may be at. The issue with all of the data is what we've repeatedly said, which is that it is statistically insignificant, which is why you're seeing those double dashes. If we don't have at least 10 students in each one of the categories reported, it essentially is throwing what I would refer to as an error. So it's not going to report it. So for perfect example, you'll see our graduation rate. You guys were at graduation. You know we graduated kids. Why is it 0? Because we don't have enough kids in that category. We didn't graduate 10 in that specific location. So that's why you're seeing those zeros across the board in areas. I think a couple of pieces that I do want to highlight, Edith, to your point, staff put a lot of work into these. So these do move through different departments to make sure that the information is accurate. Special thanks to Clarissa, Tom, who supported the work in pulling the data from CalPADS and those pieces, as well as Natasha, who does the gathering and harvesting from our other departments to make sure we get the initial data in. But I think a couple of things that would probably not be shocking to you, other than the fact that we are low with those number percentages, we do have more males than females across the board within all of our school programs. And the disparities that you're seeing, whether it's special services, Hillcrest, or Gateway, still remain with our ethnic groups. So Hispanic populations are still well high, most of them being about over 80%. You'll also see English learners and students with disabilities with, I believe, one of them even being at 27%, which is extremely high of a program to be running almost 30% of that at disabilities. So again, factors in communication with our feeder districts and things that may happen with our Gateway kids. Can't necessarily control all of the pieces within Hillcrest, but I do think these are factors that continue to be something we need to partner with our districts on when it comes to the Gateway pieces specifically. But I will open it for questions in regards to your SARCs.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board? Trustee Bonini?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One really just has to do, I want to first acknowledge the prior presentation and the data and whether or not that data is useful or not. Although, you know, it could have some utility. I understand we're not reporting, it doesn't get reported for the reasons that it's not, you know, enough students. My question around that is, there is some data that's gathered, and it may or may not, as I said, be helpful. Is that being looked at in some way? Are you sharing it with and making decisions with any part of that data with staff or leaders there or teachers? And if you are, so it's a paired question, then is there some way that we could understand kind of the trend in a space that's not public, because we understand why it's not reported is because it's such a small, it's not just that it's insignificant, it's because we don't want it to be identifiable, right? And so is there a way, has it ever been done, do any counties like share that with boards in closed session or something in a way where we could see it? We've asked this before, but we just didn't get any kind of traction around it. So I'm just curious. And if you're not really concerned with it and you're not even using it, do we need to do that? I don't know, but I'm just wondering.
I will say we do use it. So, but what usually happens is we know our kids. So if there's about 10 kids or 8 kids in this case in certain areas, as soon as we pull it up and we realize that it's triggered an attendance function and we're like, okay, that actually makes sense. So I will say that Sarah has reviewed it. I've reviewed it. Dr. Jimenez last year, who was attached to school programs. I don't believe we've had that process done with our current site administrators because this is from last year's data. But it is something that we do open up. We haven't opened it up with staff. I don't know the value point on that, to be honest, because I do feel like the story that they would see is what they're experiencing on their campus, which is, yes, the attendance makes sense, or I understood that person didn't pass their CASP test. So I don't know that it would necessarily form anything that a teacher may necessarily do different. But in terms of your second piece of the question, I don't have a good read on that. I think what we can do is we do have some listserv functions of other counties that sit in similar roles that Sarah and I do. That's something that we can ask. Does anybody else do this in a way that would have a conversation with the board that would see the names or the numbers Because similar to that suspension piece or other pieces, there are questions like, was that one kid or was that 12 kids? It doesn't really matter to you guys whether it was in terms of who the kid name is, but I think those are good questions that could come up. So I'll put a pin in that one and get back to you guys to see what our peer groups have done in that circumstance.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have another question around staffing. So of course, I see and I know from prior conversations, right? We have very few staff. I mean, just to be honest, right? We don't have a ton of teachers. You're talking right now about how you're reallocating, right? Because somebody's, needs that covered or whatever. And so we've talked in the past too, do we have a math teacher? Do we have it? So I see the numbers kind of increasing throughout the 3 years that get reported here for credentialed teachers, assigned out of field. And then, so I'm curious, like, I know we have, I don't know the statute, but I know we have flexibility, so I get that. But it just doesn't, in some way, it just doesn't feel right in some ways for some of the topics, but I'm processing it. And then the second part of that is specific to like Canyon Oaks, right? Canyon Oaks is by nature of who is served there, 100% students with disabilities. And so it does concern me to some extent that it's not like we can't, clone George and we don't have a special education. That's real. Like, I would like that, but that we don't have a special education teacher there, because we don't, right? I mean, we might have some supports, but we don't have and that's what's reported in the last year, right? There was a special education teacher and a para. And I think that's appropriate. And then I'm not, not to say it in a negative way, but is it a goal that we get back to doing that? I just want to know more about that. And I don't know, is there any changes that can be made, or we're sort of in this space right now?
Yes, and I think where we are definitely is because of the program size with the allocation of the FTE counts and what it has currently looked like. You will see the course of potential misassignments. So you are right. We do have flexibility within alternative education and within juvenile systems to be able to do, you may teach a different subject area. So we aren't necessarily multiple subject, which you wouldn't see, but you will definitely see the trend of those misalignment pieces because of some of those assignments that have happened. Can we do it, and are we allowed to? Absolutely. I think one of the contributing factors that we would have to look at is if we're running traditional programming as well, because of our numbers, what would that truly look like? I think we may end up with more teachers than students at times, very easily if we did only subject-specific content. So I do think not necessarily ideal in a comprehensive, you would have 1-for-1 in terms of your areas of focus. With our numbers, until we get to a place that seems like we might have some additional students on campus, I do think we're in a place where the differentiated instruction model is probably the most ideal. And part of this does come back to how are our students, when they're placed into Gateway, how are our districts paying for these pieces, the exorbitant piece that may come back to them depending on if we go 1-to-1 on those single subject monitors. In terms of George, I would love to have copied him as well and been able to continue to move forward with that. I will say though that his replacement that stood in the absence, and this did happen during a transition period of losing an additional personnel right before school. So we did have a conversation with a staff member that has done a pretty amazing job of stepping into something and has a connection to our RHS staff, but we would look for a special education teacher. The assignments are fairly fluent. When we do assignments, we do them from court and community lens because we know sometimes things happen. And in the past, that's looked very different. Once you only place one area, it becomes a little bit more challenging to have the conversation of how we work as a community. So that's why you're also seeing the movement from one of our staff members right now from Gateway to be able to connect with the student need at Hillcrest. But ideally, it would have been somebody that was in special education background as well in that assignment.
Okay, that's helpful. I mean, I'm guessing, and I don't know all the details, but that the IEP qualifications are probably more things that are covered, right, by the HRS. But I don't know that fact. I don't know whether there are other things that are other designations like specific learning disabilities. I don't know if that's also showing up or other things, right? So that's
I'm
my
gonna actually
concern.
pass the Canyon Oaks one closer to my special education person that has actually had the conversation with BHRS directly, so that I don't misspeak on that.
I stayed close to support my team and jump in if needed. So with special education specifically, we do have a special education teacher at Canyon Oaks. So we have a general education teacher who's doing the academic instruction across the subjects, and we have a resource specialist who is there for the duration of the academic day. So it is actually one more FTE, like one more person who is working as a team now, rather than George having to shoulder all of the instruction and the case management and the differentiation. So we've got a dynamic duo there along with our fabulous paraeducator and are working in concert with BHRS. So while Ed Code options do allow us to have different assignments for general education teachers, there are no such exemptions for special education. You have to be able, you have to be credentialed appropriately to provide specialized academic instruction. So that is in place. It's just a different model this year in response to some of the feedback we were receiving that our students would benefit from someone with content area expertise, which as a special education teacher by heart and training, we do not get that level of specificity in our credential training. So we're considering it an enhancement to our program and worked with BHRS to develop that. Regarding special services, when you see that there were students or teachers who were out of credential area, the years are prior to the bridge authorization. So when Commission on Teacher Credentialing changed the education specialist credentials, we had teachers who had credentials from a number of years in the past that would not authorize them to teach certain students. So if you had a student, even with a secondary on an IEP, you can have a primary and a secondary disability area. So even if they had a secondary disability of orthopedic impairment, but a primary disability area of intellectual disability, they might hold the credential for intellectual disability, but not orthopedic impairment. So the way that we met our compliance is to have someone who was appropriately credentialed in that area be their mentor and coach and work with them on, and that put us into compliance, but it doesn't show up on the numbers. Since then, all of our teachers have gone through the credential bridge authorization, which brings them current and allows them to teach all of the students that we have at special services. So as we get data from future years, those numbers will change. So that's kind of the explanation for why the special education credentialing data looks the way that it does.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Trustee Love?
Thank you. This might be for you. I was
Thanks
just
for
curious
staying
when I was
close.
looking, I saw that we did have a SARC for the special education program in our mix. And there were, I think, almost half of the students were in 12th grade in that SARC. So I'm curious, this year, what does that look like? Did they all leave? Are they in the transition program? I was just curious.
You're right. That is a me question. So at special services, we run programs, as you know, kindergarten through age 22. When we think about how the students' grade levels are captured in post-secondary, they all get coded as 12. So that's why it's like shoop, on the graph, it's the highest grade level. So it's all of our 12th graders and 4 years worth of post-secondary. Turnover, we've had basically pretty consistent rates over the last couple of years of students aging out and students coming in. And usually more, we would lose students at the end of the year and add 1 or 2 more. So impact to our programming, we're not seeing dramatic drop-offs, but that's why the numbers are kind of skewed like that.
That was helpful. I didn't know that. Okay. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Are there any from the public?
None from the public.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 2024 to 2025 SMCOE SARCs for the Corton Community Schools and Special Education Programs?
So
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve the 2024 to 2025 SMCOE SARCs for the court and community schools and special education programs made by Trustee Gerard and a second by Trustee Benini. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the 2024 to 2025 SMCOE SARCs for the court and community schools and special education programs have been approved.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for the engagement this evening. It does mean a lot to staff, so appreciate it very much. And to all the staff that helped, thank you guys if you're online or out in space here.
Thank you. For item 8B, Joy Dardanelle, Executive Director, District Improvement and Support, and Jeff Schmidt, Coordinator, District Improvement and Support, will provide a presentation on the 2025 Williams Annual Report specific to compliance reviews conducted in the county by San Mateo County Office of Education staff. Executive Director and Dardanelle and Coordinator Schmidt, the floor is all yours.
Good evening, Board President Torres, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Margot Chavez. Today, we are here to share with you our annual report on the countywide compliance reviews. And to start off, I'll just let you know the identification criteria this year was different than past years. Now, we know that the CDE, due to legislation, due to other things, sometimes changes the rules. And sometimes it has a really huge impact and sometimes it doesn't. This year, the changes in identification really had a huge impact because it increased the number of schools due to the comprehensive support and improvement identification, as well as the schools where 15% or more of teachers who do not possess a valid or clear preliminary teaching credential were also included on the Williams list. And instead of having 12 schools or 19 schools, as we have had in the past, we went up to 52. So what that means is that in the identification of these schools, we ended up having to really address the needs of almost triple, somewhere between 2 to 3 times the amount of schools that we've worked with in the past. The ones that we've worked with in the past were more familiar with the process. So this is also including training. This affected 18 districts plus 1 authorized charter. The 52 schools included 9 high schools, 5 middle schools, and 38 elementary schools. And within those 52 schools were 8 charter schools. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to the lead for this and the one who worked the most with each of the schools, the principals, and the districts. And that is Jeff Schmidt, our Coordinator of District Improvement and Support.
Thank you, Joy. Good evening, Board President Torres, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Chavez. This was a really, really interesting year, as Joy said. We did have to hire extra people outside of our facility, out of our organization to help with the facilities in particular, but we got it done. So I'm happy to report that 100% of the classrooms we visited were sufficient in instructional materials. There were some minor things that we found, but they were all remedied within the time frame. We did not have to send any what we call the 5-day letter. So we have 5 days to send a letter if we need to follow up with anything serious. So that was really good. It was really nice to go to the new schools because we went from 19 to 52, like Joy said. So visited a lot of schools I've never been to. And I also appreciate a lot of people in the organization that volunteered to join our team to get it done. So that was really nice. Facilities review, also the FIT reports. There was a few instances of deficiencies there as well. And there's some common themes that we see every year. We do see a lot of fire extinguishers that haven't been upgraded or the tags haven't been signed by the fire marshal. Usually that's a fire marshal capacity issue, not necessarily a school issue. And we just get them to contact the fire marshals and follow up and send us photos of the new tags to make sure that those are okay. With the Equity Menstrual Act, we do see a lot of issues with the dispensers not always being full or sometimes missing in the bathroom. So that takes quite a bit of follow-up as well. And a really common theme are things up on tops of shelves and cabinets. There's a 24-inch regulation. And if they're up close to the ceiling, that's a big, serious fire hazard. All of those were remedied within the 30-day requirement. So there's no extreme deficiencies that required a follow-up from that. So that was good news as well. We also collect all the SARCs from every school and review those and make sure that we collect those. And we did that. And that includes just the basic requirements that you just approved for our schools. Uniform complaint procedure, UCP quarterly reports, we collect every quarter. And we've been doing that. We collected all of those and have been going through those. Usually we don't see a lot of complaints because of the same reason that we had such a high number of schools, which is a lot of teacher misassignments or not fully credentialed teachers. We saw a lot of complaints filed with schools. They were remedied within their time frame and through their process with their own LEAs. In the quarter of 1, there was 1, quarter 2, 8, quarter 3, 9, and quarter 4, 1. There was a couple facilities complaints too, but most of those were related to teachers or instructional materials. So the official summary data for teacher misassignments that we receive as a county office comes usually in January. So we don't include that in this report, but our HR department credentialing crew does that. So we are actually kind of a year behind and lagging when we look at the teacher assignments from the SARCs. And that is it. So short and sweet, but I'm happy to answer any questions from you.
Any comments or questions from the board? Trustee Alvaro?
Just a quick question. In general, who files complaints against a particular school?
So complaints can be filed by teachers, students, or staff members. The ones that we saw, there were parents around the instructional materials. Some students actually filed an instructional material complaint. When it comes to facilities, sometimes we get teachers that will file like air conditioners, heaters, things like that. Because teachers are aware of what's happening in their classrooms and they don't always get fixed in time. Those are the most common.
Okay, I've just always been curious about that. It's like,
Yeah.
where do the complaints come from? So
Mhm.
parents as well as staff and students.
That's right. So charter schools don't have this requirement, but all LEAs that are not charter schools do have a requirement to post the procedures and how do you form a complaint? How do you file a complaint? Basically, anybody who comes into that community and uses those facilities can file a complaint if they see the need.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Other comments or questions from the board? Thank you for the work to go into the schools. I know as a principal, it's always very stressful when we have our Williams Act visits. Not that anything's ever wrong. It's just you always know something's going to go wrong this day. But
A lot of work.
yeah, but thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Are there any comments from the public? Thank you.
No comments.
There is no action to take on this item. For item 9A, Kevin Baltima, Deputy Superintendent Business Services Division, will introduce Sheldon Chavan. Did I say that correctly? Certified Public Accountant and partner with the Chavan and Associates LLP, who will present and comment on the 2024 and 2025 fiscal audit report.
Good evening, Board President Torres, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Chavez. I would want to start this with thanking Minette and Marion for all their hard work. Minette is our conduit who makes sure that our auditors have all the information they need to do their testing and work. So with that, I'll introduce Sheldon Chauvin, Managing Partner with Chauvin and Associates.
Good evening, and thank you for having me once again. I do appreciate it. It's always good to be here and talk about accounting and auditing, my funnest subject. If you hear me say fund instead of fun, please correct me. So what we're looking at tonight is the June 30, 2025 audit report for the county office, and we'll go over what the standards are that we follow during the audit process, maybe cover on the phases just a tad, and then discuss the results, the most important part. And so what I'll do is I'll start with the phases of the audit. There are 4 phases included in the audit. And the first phase includes the risk assessment and planning. And that's where we really focus on documenting internal controls, testing controls, identifying major programs, identifying the state compliance programs that are applicable, and really performing our overall risk assessment so that we can plan the substantive portion of the audit. And that phase 1 generally happens in May or June, sometimes April, depending on how early we can come out. The second phase is the substantive phase where we're testing the cash and investments, the long-term debt and capital assets, and really the balance sheet and the income statement, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the county office. And in that phase, we also look at federal compliance. And of course, the special education program here is usually 20 million or more every single year, so it's really hard to not test that. So we end up testing that most likely. There's a couple other programs, federal programs, that we may test year in and year out, depending on the risk assessment criteria. But those are much smaller, anywhere from $700,000 to $1 million a year. But again, in June 30, 25, it was the special education program that we tested as major. So we test that in phase 2 as well. Then we move into phase 3, which is part of what we're doing tonight, the reporting phase. And also kind of combined into this reporting phase is phase 4, which is the feedback. And really with feedback is we bring a report to management and they have questions or comments. There's some give and take there. If we bring a report to you and you have questions or comments, well, here I am to answer those questions or comments. Hopefully you don't see anything or nothing becomes of this meeting where you send it back and say, we don't like it, right? That can happen, very rare, but it can happen. So those are the 4 phases of the audit. How do we get there? Well, we follow generally accepted auditing standards in the United States of America. The AICPA really gives us those standards and says, hey, if you're going to audit in the United States, follow these. And then we're told if you're going to audit a local government, the comptroller says, hey, you're going to audit a local government, follow the generally accepted governmental auditing standards. So really the additional procedures are related to the compliance, abuse, and fraud. There's additional reporting requirements. We actually have in this package 4 different opinion letters, right? We have our independent auditor's report, which really goes over the objective of the audit, which the main objective is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. We have the auditor's report under generally accepted governmental auditing standards, as I just mentioned. That one says, hey, we don't issue an opinion on internal controls. Nice, right? We test controls, we perform walkthroughs, we document, but we use that as a rationale to do our risk assessment and plan the audit. We don't actually issue an opinion on internal controls. That doesn't mean we can't. We now can. The new standards came out 4 years ago that says we can issue an opinion on internal controls. That's a more in-depth engagement. It's a separate engagement or a combined engagement. They call it integrated audit. The other opinion that we issue is on the federal programs that I've previously mentioned. So we issue an opinion on the major federal programs. The 4th one is on state compliance. So it's not a standard, but the Education Audit Appeals Panel issues an audit guide, and we have to follow that audit guide, and we have to identify the specific criteria applicable to the County Office of Education and audit each of those compliance areas. So that's the 4 different opinion letters that you'll find in this audit reporting package. So with that being said, do you want to know what the results of the audit were? Now, we'll just call it a night. Talk about all this stuff. I could get into deferred inflows and outflows, some technical accounting. No, okay, we'll stop there. So overall, the audit results were good. We did have a couple significant deficiencies that are reported in the audit report. Way, way, way in the back. We bury as far back as we can. So we issued an unmodified opinion. That's as good as it gets in terms of the financial statements, right? So that's a clean audit, except that we did have a finding related to public contract code. So we had one contract that was let when it should have went out to bid as an informal bidding process, and it was missed. So there's a finding for that. And then we had a dating problem on the, let me make sure I say this correctly, and then we're getting into the state compliance portion of things. And believe it or not, we actually have had an uptick in findings related to state compliance in the last 4 years. And I think I've mentioned that if you were in the board meeting last year, that the finding percentages have gone way up over the last 4 years since COVID. So the one-time funding from the federal government has created this weird kind of bottleneck where we have a lot more findings in the last 4 years at the state level, a lot of supplemental things going on, so supplanting and whatnot. And so in the state compliance area, the Comprehensive School Safety Plan was approved by the board on March 19th, 2025. It was actually required to be approved on March 1st. One of those findings you can't get around, but it really is kind of silly. So there's a technicality there that wasn't met, and therefore we're required as an auditor to report on that finding. And you know, your team's aware of it, your management team's aware of it, Kevin's aware of it, and they've already made corrective action to make sure it doesn't repeat itself. And again, this specific finding, the Comprehensive School Safety Plan, we've had probably 30% of our district clients miss that as well. It's one of those situations where it's hard to keep up with all the different due dates and whatnot within these new state compliance requirements over the last few years. I wanted to touch on a couple other things that I'm required to communicate. We did send out letters that has this information in it, but I want to be sure. The audit's performed using the concept of reasonable assurance, right? So it's not absolute. We can't give you 100% confidence that that these financial statements are free of material misstatement, but we can give you a high level of confidence. Materiality is a concept that you have to work with in terms of an audit. And we look at both quantitative and qualitative aspects of materiality. We're required to do that. So we try to address what a reasonable person might think is material or significant in these financial statements when we determine what our thresholds are for materiality. So we say, with an unmodified opinion, that we believe these financial statements are free of material misstatement. The other thing is we do evaluate the county office's going concern and whether or not there's a risk that there is a lack of a going concern. And we did not find that. So we found that the financial health of the county office was good as of June 30, 2025. So one last thing is we maintained our independence. Independence is a key topic when it comes to audit firms, obviously. We want to make sure that we're not biased. And the highest risk is when an audit firm prepares your financial statements, which we do. So how do we maintain that independence? We have independent quality review internally, and then we make sure your management team has the skill set to be able to accept those financial statements and they understand them. So those are one of the main two ways that we ensure that we mitigate the risk of a lack of independence. All right, with that being said, I gave you the overall results, which were really good, except for those two minor findings that we had, and a little bit of an understanding of what we do and what the process is about. If you want to get into any of the numbers like pensions didn't change much. They were about 54 million June 30, 24, about the same June 30, 25. Your OPEB liability went down a bit because the discount rate went up. There's an inverse relationship there. Fund balance looked really good. Net position looked really good. But if you have questions about the numbers or anything else in the report or anything I've said tonight, please feel free to ask.
Are there any comments or questions from the board? Trustee Bonini?
I just had one other question. I noted on page 98, there was something noted around Proposition 28. And my question was related to the costs, if that needed to be returned and if it was done.
You know, that's a great question. Kevin, can you help me with that? Was there a return on that funding?
Yeah, we can file a waiver once we receive that from the controller's office, and we have not yet. So we will file an appeal once it's available for us.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the board? Are there any from the public? Oh, Trustee O'Neill?
And I don't know whether this goes to you or to Kevin, and I will be fair in that I haven't prepped either of you for this question, so if you need to get back to me, I understand. I have never seen the phrase hold harmless return related to local control funding formula. Can that be, that's on page 13? And it has to do in regards to the LCFF floor entitlement and that we at some point will be getting more funding in 2035, 2045.
Yeah, so there is a part of the local control funding formula. If you're looking at county offices of education, the idea in that the hold harmless is you're going to maintain a certain level of funding throughout time. And I'm not sure it's ever going to come to fruition or not. And the MD&A is actually a part of management's analysis on this, and I think that's where we're finding this. But over time, county offices should find a point to where they're getting a little bit more money to fund some of these programs. I don't know if it's ever going to really happen or not, but that's the theory behind the local control funding formula. So it's a very complex formula. It goes into a lot of levels of detail. And actually, if I were actually to give you a better answer, I would need to take that time to go back and evaluate and review and give you a better answer.
I was just curious if this related somehow, because we have a task force looking at funding being we return so much money to the state, if this was something that was applicable to that.
You know, they're all related to a certain extent. It's all tax base related as well.
Right.
So there is a relationship. It's probably not a direct one-to-one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get it clarified. Thank you.
Well, let me just add, when the new funding formula went in place for county offices of education, we are actually funded at a higher level than the calculation. So they held us harmless at that funding level.
So we're being funded at the higher level than under the old formula. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That's a good way to say that. Yes. Better than I said.
Trustee Bonini?
Oh, well, I just wanted to ask, because it's a great question. That was a great question because there's this language, right, that we don't all haven't heard 100 times, right? And I was looking at Susan because we talk about this flat funding, and it was a conversation around the funding before I was here, right, around that hold harmless clause, which made us flat funded for a very long period of time. And as Kevin said, I think it was like a couple years ago maybe 1 year ago, that it changed. But it's also related to other things that we've done. And so it just we've been talking about our reserves, and we're talking the budget committee. And so when that happened, that was kind of the time frame. My understanding is that when we started reserving some money just in case. And so so I just wanted to tie that up. We can talk about it later, and I'm sure they'll follow up, but I just wanted to chime in.
Trustee Alvaro?
Yeah, hold harmless is a magnificent piece of doublespeak.
Yes.
It sounds like, oh my goodness, you're not responsible, we'll take care of everything. And it is exactly the opposite of that. It is, we are basically not going to give you any more money because we don't want to. And you've already hit a level that we think is enough. And it doesn't have anything to do, maybe tangentially, but it doesn't really have anything to do with that ridiculousness of how we have to give all the money back to the state. Other than that just makes it worse. So yeah, it's just doublespeak, but it's a very confusing term. I remember when we first heard it and I was like, wait. I know what hold harmless means legally, and that is not what this means. So good question.
Well, all my years, between city council and school board, I've never seen that phrase, except in a different connotation.
More of a legal. That was the best I've heard someone say that. I'm going to steal that from you as long as you don't sue me for stealing it from me.
It's yours.
Other comments or questions from the board? Are there any from the public?
None from the public.
Thank you. There is no action to take on this item.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night. For item 10A, the public hearing on initial proposal for the San Mateo County Educators Association, SMCEA, to the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools for negotiations relating to the result of the classification and compensation study is now open. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? I am seeing none, so this hearing is now closed. For item 10B, the public hearing on the initial proposal for the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools to the San Mateo County Educators Association, SMCEA, for negotiations relating to the results of the classification and compensation study. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? I am seeing none, so this hearing is now closed. For item 10C, we have superintendent's comments. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, do you have any comments to share?
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For item 11A, following the regular practice of making annual subcommittee assignments at its January meeting, board members will discuss the board subcommittees for 2026. You'll have a couple of attachments or in your folder. One is a blank worksheet. For reference, it has the previous year's subcommittees and representative assignments, and then a blank copy. And then I also have the one that I drafted based on responses of each board member's interests. I will note two things. One, I did have my notes in one of the sections, and I forgot to delete all of my notes, so you'll see some italicized notes, but that was just me in organizing folks in different subcommittees. And then two, a goal that I would like for more transparency for, like, if new board members were to join and just for the public, just some additional information, and then hopefully that this would eventually go on our website, that there's additional information for each subcommittee, like the data was established, the purpose, and then just the authorizing powers of the subcommittee. So everyone kind of knows what's happening. And then also a section for us of who the liaisons for the county office will be. So hoping that helps with communication. So that's something that we'll work on with the team. It's just something that came to mind that I thought would be helpful. So to start us off, I think I'll just go through each subcommittee and just make sure everyone is good to go. And then if there are any conversations or changes, we're more than happy to discuss that as a team. So we'll start us off with the superintendent salary subcommittee. Traditionally, the chair is the board president, so that's why I have myself. I wouldn't give myself additional roles, so I have that one, and along with Trustee Gerard and Trustee O'Neill, which is, I believe, the same subcommittee as last year. Any comments, questions, concerns there? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the Interdistrict Attendance Appeal Subcommittee, I have Trustee Gerard, Trustee Love, and Trustee Arias, with Trustee Gerard serving as the chair. Yep, seeing head nods. Thank you. Up next, we have the YMCA Partnership Subcommittee with Trustee Alvaro, Trustee Love, and myself, with Trustee Alvaro serving as the chair. Seeing head nods, thank you. Up next, we have the Board Superintendent Advocacy Subcommittee with Trustee Love, Trustee O'Neill, and myself, with Trustee Love serving as the chair. Love the head nods, thank you. Board Policy Subcommittee, we have Trustee Love, Trustee Alvaro, Trustee Benini, with Trustee Love serving as the chair. Thank you, team. We have the Workforce Housing Subcommittee with Trustee Gerard, myself, and Trustee O'Neill, with Trustee Gerard serving as the chair.
Can I say something?
Yes, Trustee Gerard.
I actually would like to step down from the chair and ask Trustee O'Neill to be the chair, since he really has the expertise for the Housing Committee.
Oh, great. Thank you, Trustee Gerard, and thank you, Trustee O'Neill, for agreeing, and thank you for not giving me additional work. Okay. Up next, we have the Gateway Subcommittee with Trustee Benini, Trustee Gerard, Trustee Arias, and Trustee Benini serving as the chair. Okay. Up next, we have our Budget Subcommittee with Trustee Benini, Trustee Gerard, and Trustee O'Neill, and with Trustee Benini serving as the chair. Good to go. Up next, we have the San Mateo County Community School College District Joint Meeting Planning Subcommittee with Trustee Benini, Trustee Love, and Trustee Gerard, with Trustee Benini serving as the chair. Okay, so far so good. Up next, we have the Board Governance Work Group Subcommittee, myself, Trustee Gerard, and Trustee Love, with myself serving as the chair. Beautiful. Up next, we have the representative assignments. We have the San Mateo County Office of Education, the Local Control Accountability Plan for our LCAP representative, Trustee Benini and Trustee Gerard. Up next, we have the San Mateo County School Boards Association, SMC SBA, area representative being Trustee Arias. Great. Up next, we have the County Committee on School District Organization Liaison Representative being Trustee Love. We have the Association of California County Boards of Education, the ACCBE representative being myself. Unless anyone wants to take it, I will do it. Up next, we have the Coalition for Safe Schools and Communities, Trustee Love and Trustee Gerard. Up next, we have the Big Lift representatives, Trustee Gerard and myself. And then lastly, we have the Special Education Local Plan Area, our SELPA representatives, being Trustee Benini and Trustee Arias. Okay. Anything that I missed? Any comments, questions, concerns? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public?
No comments from the public.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 2026 board subcommittee assignments? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There is a motion to approve the 2026 board subcommittee assignments made by Trustee Love and a second by Trustee Alvaro. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the 2026 board subcommittee assignments have been approved. For item 11B, when an ad hoc subcommittee meets or a representative attends a meeting related to their given assignment, board members may choose to bring a report to the board at this time. Would any board members like to report out? Trustee Love?
Thank you. I just wanted to give an update on the advocacy subcommittee. We met with Senator Becker's staff, and their recommendation was that we draft a letter for the senator to send to the legislative analyst office, asking them to look at the issue of the disparity in funding among districts and how that we kind of got to that point and how it's not consistent with policy and the lawsuit and everything else that we've talked about here. And so we sent a draft over to them this week, and they liked it, and they're going to tweak it a little bit. So I think we're moving forward. And one of the things that's really great about that is that we're working really closely with San Mateo County School Boards Association on this initiative. In fact, it was Trustee David Lee from Redwood City, who is the chair of the Legislative Action Committee for San Mateo County School Boards Association, who sent the letter to Senator Becker. So it's just a wonderful partnership. It's what we should be doing. And so we have this whole big body of districts, including ourselves, working on this issue. So that's it. And then I just look forward to holding meetings of the committees moving forward. So thanks.
Trustee O'Neill?
I just wanted to add is that it's either the 28th or 29th, we do have a meeting with 28th. Yeah, we have a meeting with Diane Pappin's office and a meeting with Stefani's office, the assembly members for 2 other assembly members. We're yet to meet with Berman, and Scott Wiener, I guess, is too busy running for Congress to return the call. So,
any questions for the subcommittee? Thank you to Ian for the support with that group, and just there's a lot of traction happening with the group. So thank you to everyone involved. Other subcommittees or representative assignments? Trustee Alvaro?
I just wanted to mention that the YMCA Housing Subcommittee met with the Y on a Zoom meeting and got some more information about the costs of the new housing. We're going to, I'm going to ask to do a Zoom with our subcommittee and Mr. Baltima and just try to put our thoughts into a more clear. Unfortunately, we met right before the holidays, and so everything just kind of went crazy. So hopefully come back and present to the board in February, and then begin to move into the discussion, because we finished the part now, as I said at the last meeting, where all the money was pre-approved. And we just said, yep, that works. Yep, that works. And now we're moving into the part where we said, yes, although the money is there, we need to come back to the whole board to have discussion about where it's spent and what's being built. So that's going to be the next step. As soon as we get our heads wrapped around what we want to talk about, we'll schedule a time to have the whole board have a conversation about it.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any other report outs? Trustee Benini?
Yes, so I have 3 report outs. The first one is the budget subcommittee. We met on Monday, the 12th, And this was a meeting just of the subcommittee members. We have a follow-up meeting scheduled with staff on, I think it's the 28th, something like that. So we were meeting to go over just, we hadn't met for a while, maybe almost a year or 9 months. And so we focused on a few things which we will talk about kind of preparing for the meeting with staff. So one was how our budget is currently aligned with our strategic plan, how that aligns with our board priorities or priorities that the budget committee has sort of gleaned from conversations. And then things that may be goals. And so maybe it might align with some of our retreat work. We might learn more. And then if there were desires, to say this is a priority, is that related to general fund, like reallocation? Would we be proposing something, or would it be something to do with reserves of some sort? And then the last thing we spoke about was a topic that was raised in regard to facilities master plan and other things in December around transparency, increasing transparency. So we talked a little bit about what would happen with some of the policy review. So some of it, I think, will come to us in the budget committee in terms of things we want to talk about. And then some of it, by way of an update of that, we want to push some of the review of policies over to the policy committee from that discussion, instead of having a study session on that. It may come back to the board with recommendations from policy, but I want to just thank Trustee Love as chair of that. And then I've rejoined the policy committee, so that will be a good transition to there, so that we can talk about that related to things that may be like superintendent policies that might need a board policy or might not, that's parallel, something like that. So that was our budget committee discussion, and it was a really, really good meeting. And let's see, the next one I want to report out on is, our Gateway subcommittee meeting. So Gateway committee meetings happened on December 22nd, January 8th, and January 9th. These conversations were mostly regarding things that were also raised in December around the facilities master plan and our communications with staff. Trying to understand more around what the details are regarding that have happened in that plan that relate to Gateway, because that was our primary concern. So we're still in the process of assessing that. So we don't have anything to report out yet, but we're still looking at that information. So that's the Gateway. Should I pause to see if anyone has any questions? And then I'll do my last one.
Are there any questions on the two subcommittees thus far?
Okay.
I think you're good to go.
And then lastly, Trustee Torres and I, or President Torres and I, are liaisons. We were liaisons to the SELPA. So we attended the SELPA meeting of the governing board for the SELPA, and that was on December 16th. And we were excited to see a presentation by some of county office staff regarding how things are billed and things like that to districts, since that was really interesting. I made a comment at the SELPA asking them if how things were going with the community advisory committee, letting them know that it's not on my list right now, but it has been, I need to re-raise it around having a new process go forward with trying to appoint a community member to the CAC that represents our schools and our students. So anyway, so I asked them about that, and then there were other public comments that were made. I did want to note that there was a public comment made regarding the CAC, and I wrote down notes about it. It was actually followed mine, and it raised concerns that the meetings weren't necessarily happening in well, I don't know if they're happening because I haven't gotten notice about them, but that they were just concerned about the engagement. And so I followed up to try to find out where that comment came from, because it was submitted by email. And I'm just going to say it here because I was a little not exactly happy. I was basically told that if I wanted the comment, even though I had notes about it, to see who it came from, I would have to wait until March, until the meeting minutes were approved, or I would have to submit a Public Records Act request. So I guess I'm stating it here because I think that maybe there's a way we can, with staff, perhaps maybe have a conversation. It's just a matter of one email. I don't want to have to do that, but I sort of do want to understand where that's coming from so that we can engage on that. So I'm just reporting that here.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Any other report outs? I do have a request for all the subcommittees and all the chairs, just to get the ball rolling. If you could just initiate if you haven't met already, just initiate a first meeting. If you have new members, I think it'd also be great to just meet to catch folks up if there are any questions. And then there doesn't need to be a report out unless you feel it's necessary. I think it's just important to get it going, to build the momentum. So just start off the year strong. Are there any comments from the public?
Mr. Torres, excuse me, I have
Yes.
a question. Can we assume, it's not on your list, but can we assume that our staff liaison will remain the same unless because if we're going to get together a committee meeting, we need to know.
I think we should just, we'll work on updating that just to make sure that that's staying the same. And then after that's done, yes.
If you can give us a week, we have a core cabinet meeting on Tuesday. We can have that conversation, if that's okay. And then I can share those names.
Yes.
With the board.
Perfect. I'll make sure to share that.
Thank you.
And then once that's all good, if you can send it to the whole board. Yes, thank you. Gets difficult if I try to do that. Trustee Arias?
Quick question, since I'm a few new ones, do I just approach everybody to find out the dates, or is there a master, like when everybody meets, or?
The chair will be responsible
Will be
for kind of
contacted.
organizing that.
So the chair will contact me for the dates?
Yeah.
Okay,
They should-
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public?
None from the public.
Thank you. There's no action to take on this item. For item 11C, the board will discuss topics for future board agendas. Would any board members like to discuss agenda ideas? Trustee O'Neill?
Being in December, we decided, we were talking about a facilities master plan. I would like to see if we can have the Rollins Road property a discussion at the board. Should that be part of the facilities master plan? Because in March is when we listed it, and to my knowledge, we've not had any interest in leasing it. So maybe see if that should be part of the facilities master plan, and is there something that we would want to do with the property?
Noted. Thank you. Trustee Bonini?
So I want first to follow up on a couple of agenda item requests which weren't yet on the list. So two of them actually were raised in December. One is a request, and this, I guess, may be able to go through Budget Committee, but I'm just going to state it here because that's how I initially raised it, was for a publication of a list of the expenditures on a monthly basis in the register that would be posted on consent, similarly to what an LEA does. So that was one that I'm following up on. The second one is the request to have an agenda item or a response about creating a contract portal. Those are both in furtherance of transparency around the issues that we were having. The third follow-up is a request that I actually sent to President Torres around that we have an update on our cell phone policy and practice, especially with the new law that is in effect. And my fourth follow-up is actually Trustee Love already mentioned it in regards to the student board member and how if we would have a discussion about that. So that might have been raised, but it's also an agenda item request. And then I have one new request, which is that we, as we've had in years past, that we have a presentation from the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commissions to give us an update on the conference that they held last week, which was amazing, and I'll talk about that more in my comments. And also, as they've done in the past, share the projects that they're doing with the community and the inspections and things like that, so that we have a chance to hear that as it relates to our work.
Thank you. Are there other agenda ideas? I am seeing none. There is no action to take on this item. For item 11D, board members will comment. Trustee Alvaro.
Okay, just, excuse me, two things quickly. Supervisor Ray Muller had an event last week at his office where Mr. O'Neill also works and was in attendance to meet our new sheriff, Sheriff Bender. And I did go and have a chance to talk to the sheriff and just say, you know, here's who we are. And if you want to have any discussions with the back and forth with the county board, we're ready to talk to you at any time. So I just wanted to thank Ray Muller for having that event. And then on the consent agenda, we passed a resolution honoring January 30th again as Fred Korematsu Day. It's very important. And I just wanted to make a comment about it because as I read it, it just really struck me. It always does, but this year, just the day serves to remind us just how far astray our country allowed itself to go during and after World War II. And it should serve to remind us as a warning that we just cannot let our guard down and allow such egregious acts against our own citizens as happened to Mr. Korematsu and everyone else that was involved. We just can't let that happen again. And that's all I want to say about it, but thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Arias?
Well, first of all, Happy New Year. I started my year with a few conferences and activities I like to report, and I'm looking at the time and I'm saying, like, I need to make this short. I have notes here, so bear with me. It's about several ones that I attended this January 2026. But I want to start, first of all, with January 7, 2026 at the College of San Mateo. 6-hour conference, first annual Prevention in Action, Schools, Communities, and Youth Voices Conference by Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission. But I also want to do a shout out. We see in attendance Commissioner Jennifer Blanco here. And during the conference, it was mentioned that it was her idea for this to happen. So Jennifer, I really want to appreciate again the work in that day that has really marked how I feel and how I want to frame. This is kind of like framework. It's a framework I want to take for my whole 2026 and my advocacy. So some of the learnings I got from there, we had a keynote speakers and 2 sessions, plus a student panel, just bullet points, talking about the development of modern schools as a response of industrialization. Public education was not designed to uplift students, but to make them follow rules and be in the workforce. So we need to disrupt the factory model of education. And it was also said, income inequalities in public schools that we see in San Mateo County. And we had a visual comparison between San Bruno and Hillsborough. And I have to say, both are public schools, and part of San Mateo County. And the visuals were very, it really broke my heart to see the differences of what our students are getting depending on where they live in the areas. I attended the session, Bridging Systems, a community center approach to schools connectedness and youth success, presented by the Reconnecting Youth Company, who provides the Coping and Support Training, or CAST program, for staff focusing on social and emotional support for students and mental health awareness. And San Bruno Middle School is already one that is using this program, and I'm very proud to know that I'm in the District 3 where San Bruno belongs, so that's great. The other session I attended was Peer Point, an alternative to school suspensions. I was very interested in that, and it was presented by Fresh Lifelines for Youth, or FLY, and it's a program for youth that is peer-led initiative designed to divert youth from suspension and expulsion and arrest. And it's about a 5-month of coaching, and the information was just amazing, and I believe it's about 2 years that it started, 2023, I think, 2023, 24. But from this conference, what I took was the end when 4 youth panels shared their lived experiences and they voiced their needs and asking for support. When I heard the comments of a 14-year-old who's in our system and said he's been there since he was 12, or he started to be when he was 12, it told me they're children. They're under 18 years old. And for me to feel, being an adult, I'm a parent, I've been an educator, and I'm here in this board, it's so important that we make ourselves responsible for who's there and what they're receiving and not. So if you were heard how they, first of all, how they presented that it was so difficult for them to be there, just even sitting there and being willing to be in the panel, to be asked questions about their life experiences and the situation they were living in. They were really brave, and I have no more than admiration for this conference. And I've heard it's coming again next year, but in August, there's something else coming. So I'm excited about that. I think there's a lot of work to do, but the most important thing, I think, is to be aware, to create this awareness and to talk about it and what's happening in our county, right? So it also reminded me to bring back to you the school board member checklist addressing student mental health needs in an article titled Healing Justice in Multicultural Counseling from the conference you approved me to attend at the MASBA, the School Board Members for Latino Equity, in October 2025. And so I have a copy here, and I would like to, I'm going to make sure that you all just get a copy just for information, because this feels, even though this checklist is school board member, and they refer to school districts, but it's also help us to understand and ask our questions about what is happening in our court and community schools. So I will make sure that you get a copy of that. So it just, I will give it to Jennifer. And then I'm going to move on really quick. I'm sorry, but I was like taking a lot of notes with what happened. January 12th, I attended the San Mateo County School Board Association meeting in this office with our presentation, Transforming Students' Outcomes Through Access and CTE, Career Technical Education, presented by our own Associate Superintendent of Educational Services, Chris Schaus. I was very impressed of the engagement that happened within all the school boards, like all the questions that they asked and how much learning we had for that day, and the hope and the future that feels to me like it's possible and that is coming. We heard about the difference between trade, CTE, ROP, Regional Occupational Program, and that was very important to hear. And today in the presentation, you heard about how the students are, when giving students meaningful, interesting content that can be student-centered with intention, the pathways to a job or a career as an adult changes, right? That's why it's so important. We also were given a report on a summary and projection of 2023 to 2028 San Mateo County labor market data, which was really impressive and informational. So thank you very much again. Thank you, Chris. January 13, I visited the district office of San Bruno Park School and met with Superintendent Matthew Duffy. And he shared about the preschool, the 4 elementary schools, and the middle school that conform that school district. Excited to know that he gave me a tour to Allen Elementary School with a state-of-the-art campus funded by Measure X, which was completed about late 23, early 24. That place is amazing. If you ever have a chance to go, I'll be glad to ask it that we go together, because it's, again, brand new. It's brand new. The way that they have activities for STEM opportunities, the library was amazing, the cafeteria, they do pozole. They give pozole to students, Eventually, they do things from scratch in the cafeteria, and they even have tajin for the fruits. So I was like, okay, this is wonderful. So again, when we talk with the staff at the cafeteria, they say students, get engaged with the different foods that they are given. And to me, it was so culturally appropriate when I heard about, the demographics and the area where it is. But I think it's this outside the box thinking and trying things to see if it's going to be making a difference. And it totally did. It was really exciting to be there. And today I just attended the virtual presentation for ACCBE presented by Christine Olmsted from CCEE, all these acronyms, California Collaborative for Education Excellence, titled Secondary School Redesign. So there's the state board has a pilot network of schools with a $10 million budget from the governor, distributed into this network of schools, creating a statewide portrait of a learner graduate to sustain innovation. And I did send an email to Marco after that, because I don't know if San Mateo County Office of Ed has a portrait of a learner or a graduate, which I don't know.
You'll get a response right after this.
Okay, yeah. And only because they did ask around who was there, and there were other trustees, and it didn't seem that it's more like districts kind of do that. But I was just curious, and they talk about how important the state is thinking about doing this survey to research what are the most important competencies of learners or graduates during their 9th to 12th grades. So again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you listening to my journey through this January 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bonini?
Thank you. So first, I would just want to ask Deputy Superintendent Chavez to please extend my thanks, probably not on behalf of the board, but for the amazing gifts to the students. If you could please just thank them for that. It's very special, and thank you. Secondly, I wanted to thank Chris Schaus and Sarah for the presentation around the LCAP and for focusing on literacy. Of course, that's one of my passions, and all of the information was so helpful. And that obviously every time we get a presentation, it's helpful, but this one was just really, really important. Really important. So thank you so much, and for opening the door to allowing our students to have this opportunity and to try to extend it. So thank you. I also want to thank Chris Schaus for the presentation that she did give that Trustee Arias already mentioned around CTE for our San Mateo County School Boards Association. It was very engaging. We had a small but mighty, it was a mighty group. I think we had 17 attendees. And there were so many questions, it was like trying to get through more information, but it was great to hear from the trustees who were having their own experiences and to share actually the great things that are happening with our program. So I was very proud of it. So for the office. I also wanted to, let's see, what was the next thing? Sorry. I also was at the JJDPC conference on the 7th with a few of us. And it was just the most amazing day. I just want to thank Jennifer Blanco. I'm going to thank Johanna Rasmussen and just the JJDPC for having this idea to do this. And really it was Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. It's so important to have everyone in the room. And I was honored to be invited for like the debrief from it, yesterday. And it was just the comments that I took away from the debrief were everyone who was there, even though it was a really tough topic to be talking about, there was like joy in the room of gathering and being together. And so, and having the discussions, and there was some crying. I think that happened a few times. The sessions were amazing. Keynote was amazing. It was just a great inaugural event. And so I'm hoping that we can engage more with that. So hence the request for the agenda item and more things around that. And let's see. I think my last thing? My last thing is that I just wanted to, I've reached out to a couple of the trustees and community, but the 17th District PTA, they adopted many of us know, they adopted our schools, our teachers, our staff, our court and community schools a long time ago, probably around 2014 or 15. And I've been volunteering to do that since, it was even before that. But with Keiko and with Lori, it was around that time frame. And so I started volunteering in 2015 and making gifts, and we had many more staff then. But so anyway, they are doing their winter luncheon, which is to the Teacher Appreciation Week, and it's on the 4th of February. So if you are online and you don't know about it yet, and you're a staff member, that's the day it is at Gateway. We'll be there. We're making food, and it's going to be amazing. So I think that is my last thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Love?
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. And thank you for the board appreciation celebration and the gifts, and very much appreciated. I attended the Juvenile Justice Inaugural Conference. I won't go into it. I think we got a great report from Edith. I share a lot of her thoughts on all of that. Same with the CTE event. Associate Superintendent Schaus, awesome job on that. Just really engaged folks, and some really good tools that districts can take back and use with their teams. I thought that was awesome. And reports tonight, excellent. I also really appreciated the dialogue and discussion on the part of the board with the team. I thought that was a good, positive evening. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and I had mentioned this to Board President Torres at the meeting on the 17th, that our meeting on the 15th left me not feeling really great. In some ways, I feel like, and that this is a reflection on myself, not everyone else, that the way the board treated Deputy Superintendent Bultema was really not acceptable. He is the most transparent, wise, holds staff accountable, but yet invites them to come and present. So he's building leadership. He's just really done an amazing job. And I didn't say anything, and I didn't speak up. I sent him a note later, which isn't enough, to apologize for how we treated him. And don't mean to get choked up, but I have been on the staff, and I know how it feels when one of your colleagues gets kind of beat up, a lot of, shade thrown at them at a meeting. It really hurts. I did hear from former colleagues. There were tears in the county office after that presentation. They shared the video around with others. I know from people I talked to, they were disappointed in me, because I know how that feels for the staff to be treated like that. And it's not just the person at the podium, it's everyone. And so I just apologize again for not saying something in the moment and I'm saying it now, and we are having a governance meeting, and I hope that we will spend more time as a board thinking about what we do and how we act, and then not so much about how we want the county office to act and respond, but how we want to treat ourselves, and then how we will bring that forward as a really good partner to the team at the county office so that we can really work together, all about kids. Like Kevin Holtema always leads with kids. Let's not give money to PG&E. Let's put it in programs. He's always looking for those opportunities. He's always leads with kids. And so it's my greatest regret from last year on my board is that meeting. So I just want to share that. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll just add two things. One, Deputy Superintendent Chavez and I are working on some restorative healing that needs to happen from that. So that will be on its way when all parties are ready. And I also asked Deputy Superintendent Chavez to get some feedback from Cabinet in regards of what they need from the board, so that hopefully we can compile these topics, and if there's time and it fits into our county board retreat that's coming up. So those items have been also on my mind. So thank you. Trustee O'Neill?
I have to admit, I've always said that Patricia can make a pig's ear sound like silk. And I just want to compliment her that I do support what she said about Kevin. I haven't known Kevin that much because, I'm new to the board. However, the next day I did send both to Kevin and Marco an apology for the board at the way they were treated, because I do think that was not good. And the next meeting, 2 days later, when I saw Kevin, I went over and personally apologized for the action of the board that night. And I do agree and wholeheartedly support Patricia. Getting into my dialogue, tomorrow, if any of you are involved in nonprofits or want to meet some people that have money that they can donate, my boss is having a meet and greet with the Silicon Valley Foundation at my office on the coast side there at the Oceana Hotel. If you want details, let me know. Last year, the CEO of the Silicon Valley Foundation came. I don't know if he's coming this year, but I just wanted to be sure everybody knew about it. On January 26th, I believe Marco is going to be coming to an event that we're trying to get together and supporting San Mateo County agriculture and in regards to having farm to fork food in the schools. And they're coming just to kind of check it out, see what the program is, and maybe see about getting healthier meals in our schools. We have until January 31st, and I know there's 5 people in this room that with this will affect, but our dear leader in Washington, D.C. wants to put oil drilling and oil rigs off the coast of San Mateo County. And if you want to oppose that, the deadline for comments is January 31st. I didn't know if we could get it through the board procedures to get for the board to actually vote against this, assuming it would be a board vote, But January 31st is the deadline, and those of us that live on the coast do not want to look at our window and see oil rigs and oil drilling. I attended the CTE advisory committee, and I'm facilitating or working with them to get 2 field trips for our junior and senior students. And I also attended the budget and advocacy committee meetings, and kind of taking off what Beverly said in regards to the Japanese internment. That is something that happened very locally. I know Sarah lives less than a mile from an internment camp that was in Pacifica, and there's still one of the Quonset huts still there from that internment camp. So it was something that was very local in San Mateo County. The Italians got to leave and go to work. They had to be back by 6, but the Japanese were not allowed to leave the camp at all. And, so I just passing that on that, taking off from what Beverly said.
Thank you, Trustee Gerard.
Thank you very much. I also attended the Juvenile Justice Conference on January 7th, and it was really eye-opening. I wish everyone from the board could have been there. It really hit home on what we're all about and what our programs are all about, and the networking and information that was shared was just invaluable. I think that every single time that you attend something like this, or you go to a conference or training or whatever, you always learn something and can bring home invaluable information back to hopefully use in our own programs. Innovative things that you hear about. And one of the sessions I attended was the transition to and from court school. And it was really, really interesting because unfortunately, we're not able to do all that because of constraints that we have with staffing and whatever. But the process that actually is mandated by law, I was shocked, quite frankly. I had no idea that there is actually a process mandated by law for the transition of students coming into court school and going out of court school. So it was really interesting. All of the information that we're supposed to have when they come in, and all the information we're supposed to give when they go out. And it's all supposed to be done in a very specific way. It was really a very interesting session. And I met someone there, because you all introduce yourself as you go around, that actually worked for San Mateo County Office of Education 18 years ago. And she worked at Camp Glenwood for 7 years. And then she was recruited by the probation department. And her job was to put everything together to transition our students back into their schools from our court school. And that was her job with the probation department. Unfortunately, that job doesn't exist anymore either with the probation department, but it was very interesting. I also want to tout a couple of things with ACCBE. I was not able to attend the session this afternoon because I was fighting with AT&T phone company with the man on my pole out in the backyard. But I won't go into that. Anyway, we are having another training on January 22nd at 7 o'clock. And this is a training for new board presidents and existing board presidents. And it's all the things you need to know to be a board president. And I have the honor of actually being one of the trainers along with Juliana Ferriani. And then on the 28th of January at 7 o'clock is our 1-year celebration for ACCBE. And it's all on Zoom, but I'd love to have everybody come. We're very excited and what we've accomplished in 1 year. And on February 20th and 21st, ACCBE is having a conference. This is the one we talked about. We're actually having 3, but the first one is the 20th and 21st, and it will be in Modesto. And I really would love to see everybody come. There'll be 3. There'll be another one in Ukiah, and then one in Southern California, probably in San Bernardino. But this one in Modesto is the first one. And some of the information and sessions that we're having are very different, and I think will be very, very informative. And there's information on the ACCB website so that you can go in and see what we're offering. But I'm very excited about it. And I noticed on our calendar that Jennifer gave us that there is a site visit on March 20th for Gateway, Hillcrest, and Ann Campbell Center. And I would like to, Jennifer, be signed up for that, please. Happy New Year, everyone, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to Palos Verdes for the gifts, and thank you to the staff for the love and appreciation.
Yes, they're beautiful.
And the time that goes into everything to make it happen. And then thank you to all of the board members who were responsive to my emails about setting up the subcommittees. It was very helpful to kind of get through it in a breeze during the meeting. So appreciate the feedback, the suggestions, the phone calls, everything. Yes, and then just thank you to the team. I know coming back from break, there's always a lot to do. So appreciate everyone staying late and being here and all the work we have coming up. And that's where I will end. Item 12 is our adjournment. The next meeting is a special meeting, governance workshop on Saturday, January 31st, 2026 at 9 a.m. And then the next regular meeting will take place on Wednesday, February 4th, 2026 at 7 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.